Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 41 on Sifted Games, streaming live right now on Twitch or archived on the site if you can't make the live stream. Matt, I have to say, I think it's been the slowest week in video game news since Sifted launched.
One big thing, but nothing else.
Which is insane because this is typically the time of year where it's just news rolling.
Yeah, but nobody wants to get in the way of the VR hype bus.
Yeah. I mean, we have a great show. We put together some great topics for the show and everything. But yeah, we had to work for it this week. Yeah. Usually it just falls on our laps and we just have this. We're cutting topics.
Yeah, usually the process of elimination. And this time we're like, what do we do?
Yeah. So GDC is going on right now. GDC, not a lot of news coming out other than PlayStation VR, which we'll definitely get to in the show. But
PlayStation
otherwise,
VR and the cross-platform play.
Yeah.
So. Which, like, what is there to say about that? Except
there really isn't a story there because
hope it happens.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft opened it up, but Sony has to play ball. So
Microsoft's making it available, and Sony kind of capitulated a little bit and said, "Oh, we'll certainly look into it." But I would be really surprised if Sony cares enough. When you're the leader, you don't care about that crap.
No. I mean, it's either going to be if you have developers, if you want to incorporate it, go ahead.
Yeah.
But we're not going to lose sleep over it.
Yeah, we're not going to put any resources towards anything like that. As cool as it would be to get those two communities together playing games, obviously the more the merrier. I think it pays off, particularly with games that don't have huge audiences, especially with some of these games that have online modes where people fade over time.
It'll help to keep populating the online stuff.
For a longer period of time, yeah. So when you get down to where there's only 5,000 people on Xbox and 5,000 on PlayStation 4, you have 10,000 people to play with.
Although I do hope that they give an option to activate crossplay per platform, because I can see, if you want to play Call of Duty with between Xbox One and PS4 owners, that's cool. But if you decide to include PC owners, I think the PC people are going to fucking murder you.
Yeah, I don't think it would be fair to play a shooter against someone who's good with a mouse and keyboard.
Not at all.
You just get decimated pretty much. And then with PC too, it's you can hack it. A lot of people talk about Call of Duty hacks, but those only happen on PC. People aren't really hacking. They'll find exploits in the console versions that will be quickly patched. But people actually hack the PC version of Call of Duty.
It's happening with Division already.
Yeah, just wall hacks and all that type of stuff. So yeah, you may have noticed actually that we have rejiggered our studio a little bit. We're trying to make the studio more versatile so we can do a lot more things in here other than just GameFace. Basically what was happening is we'd come into live stream in here, we'd have to completely reconfigure the studio and haul a bunch of stuff from one side to the other. So we've kind of set it up now, so we have kind of a permanent, right behind me, we have a permanent streaming section for the studio. Also, I think it gives a little more depth for this show. It makes the set look a little bit better for GameFace as well. So just want to make it easier, plug and play when we come in and stream. It'll help us stream a lot more frequently, knowing that we don't have to come in here and burn an hour and a half just getting set up for the stream. So yeah, looks a little different. We're not as close.
And the monitor's up there now, so if you see us looking up, that's what that is.
Yeah. So the monitor, it used to be kind of over to the side. Now it's just directly above the cameras. So it should keep our line of sight on that two-shot a little better.
Yeah, now I won't be looking this way.
Right.
When it comes back from the trailer, I'll be looking up.
We'll be looking up, yeah. So anyway, let us know what you guys think of the set. I think it actually looks a lot better this way for GameFace. Our streams are going to look a lot better as well. And like I said, we'll do them a lot more often now that we've kind of cut down that 3 hours total of setting up and tearing down to do our streams. So one more thing we want to talk about. There's only one other little tidbit of news we want to talk about before we get to the big six, and that is a brand new developer is working on a game, and Matt and I were trying to figure out if this has ever worked out well. So Dead Island 2 has picked up Sumo Digital as its new developer after Jaeger was basically taken off the game. And Matt and I, before the show, we were trying to put our heads together to think if we could even think of a game that had ever switched developers, and 2, if one ever came out, and 3, if the game that came out was ever good.
Not common. I mean, the only thing I can think of was StarCraft Ghost, which
never came out.
Switched from nihilistic to I think Blizzard took it internally.
Yeah.
And they just decided they couldn't salvage it. And the only other example I could think of was actually happened in the last week, where the developer's name I can't remember, who did the Sherlock Holmes games that you see bundled in every Steam sale. they announced a Call of Cthulhu game that has just been announced that development of that has been transferred to a developer called Cyanide. So we'll see if that ever comes out, and if it does come out, if it's any good. But it is usually not a good sign.
I would be I would be surprised if this game ever comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, think about picking up it's a little easier now because the pipeline that you used to develop is kind of unified, and everyone's kind of working on sort of that same middleware, and a lot of times the assets will come over from other middleware to the middleware you're working on, so it's a lot easier to do now than it was 5-10 years ago. But they're still, I mean, I'm guessing they're completely reworking the game, probably coming up with new concepts for it. I would be really surprised, one, if the game comes out, and two, if when it does come out, if it ends up being good. So Sumo Digital has done like the Sonic All-Stars racing game, which was great.
Yeah, they're good.
But that's a kart racing game.
Right. I'm interested to see because I think the other issue with something like Dead Island 2 is like Dying Light has kind of raised the bar of the first-person open-world zombie game, and like well above what Dead Island was.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because those guys are the original Dead Island developers.
I mean, Dead Island was kind of one of those guilty pleasure games. Like, you knew how you were playing it. It was filled with jank, and there was all kinds of broken stuff in it, but because it was like the only game in town like that, it was the only open-world zombie game at the time. Like, I feel like a lot of people kind of suffered. It sold well. Mm-hmm. And I think, a lot of it, too, is that initial trailer. I don't know if you remember the first trailer for the first Dead Island. It was amazing with the family in the hotel room or whatever. The game ended up being nothing like that, by the way.
No, there was no, like, actual emotion in the game whatsoever.
Which this trailer that we just showed, actually...
That's a good trailer.
It's a good trailer, and so I don't know if it's going to be a repeat.
Yeah, but I mean, that original trailer, like, we had people on the X-Play staff who wouldn't watch it because they had daughters.
Right.
And the kid turns into a zombie in the trailer. So it's like a big difference in terms of sort of how you initially pushed that game and what it ended up being. I like Dead Island 1, but I never felt the need to play Riptide or any of the subsequent games.
I did not play it for review. I only played it because I wanted to, because I'm a big horror movie fan and I love zombie games typically. And I think I played it for about 4 hours before I was done with it.
I 100%ed it.
Did you?
But again, I had 3 other people I was playing with.
Right,
it was like a co-op thing, so it was like it was fun. It was fun, playing with other people is like always going to make even a mediocre game more fun.
Yep, for sure. So I never really got into it. It'll be interesting to see what they do with this one, what Sumo Digital does with it. I mean, we haven't really seen any of the game. All we've seen is this CG trailer that really tells you nothing. Other than it looks like it may be set in Los Angeles. This is Venice. This trailer is set in Venice. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess it's good to see that the game hasn't been completely canned. It has a chance.
Yeah.
Deep Silver needs this game to do well. It's not a publisher that puts out a ton of games every year, and when it loses a game in a quarter, that's a huge blow financially for a publisher of that size. To me, it's still strange that Deep Silver publishes or tries to publish AAA games.
There's sort of there's a whiff of Majesco about that company at this point.
Yeah, so
I'm worried.
So we'll see. But yeah, just wanted to mention that to you guys before we got into the Big Six, that it is still alive. It has been resurrected. Now the game itself, Matt, is a zombie.
Yeah, that's true.
It rose from the dead. So
can it shamble to retail?
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. Maybe we'll see it at E3.
Maybe?
I don't know. I kind of doubt it.
I don't know. I would be weird to announce that shift now if you weren't planning on showing something.
Yeah.
In a couple months.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't make an appearance at E3, I think you're going to lose a lot of confidence in it.
Yeah, but at the same time, people may have completely lost all confidence when it was
true
semi-canceled. So.
Or when this E3, it'll be 2 years since it was announced, and the only thing we've ever seen from it is that trailer.
Yeah, not even any leaked gameplay of it.
No.
Nothing at all. So we'll see, people. But right now we have more pressing matters. It's time to get to the Big Six. All right, we're going to kick it off with undoubtedly the biggest story of the week. No comparison.
Yep.
We waited all this time. It was rumored that this was going to happen at GDC. It did happen. We now know the price of PlayStation VR, $399 coming October. They haven't nailed down an exact date for it yet, but it is coming during that month, so they say. Hopefully it won't be delayed again.
Trick or treat.
So let's just start with the basics, Matt. Let's talk about price.
lower than I guess a lot of people expected. It's about where I thought it would be, but it's also kind of a fake out.
Well, I posted on Twitter that Sony said all along, like literally all along, that it was going to cost the same as a new video game console. So it's so funny how all this debate was going around about what would the price be, how high, how low. I mean, we knew all along that it was going to be $400.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Matt?
That's a lot of money.
It is still a lot of money.
It's more than a console now because the PlayStation 4 is $350 with a game bundled.
Right.
And on top of that, you need the PlayStation 4 camera to use it, which is $60.
And I am glad I did get one. Like, I got one, like, I bought the console myself, and then for Christmas, I ended up asking for a PlayStation camera. I hooked it up once. As soon as I took the console out to bring it to the studio, I've never hooked the camera back up again.
Right.
So,
well, I'll tell you that, I mean, I hope they are on top of this, but hey, if any of you out there are planning on getting PlayStation VR, like for sure, like you are getting PlayStation VR, buy the camera now.
yeah.
Like
Well, they said that the sales
open a
of
new
it...
tab while you're listening to me and buy it on Amazon because I think those things are going to go.
No, they already are. The sales went up today 1,000%.
Really?
Well, you figure 1,000 times 1 is 1,000.
Right. Initial rush of people that are going to be. But I'm saying, like, you know, or get a used one for, like, you know, those things are going to disappear, and I don't know if Sony's going to have the foresight to produce enough.
Yeah. Also, you should also mention, like, literally, the launch shipments are pretty much already sold out on Amazon, both in the UK and the US. So, again, like, you might want to open a new tab and go to Amazon and try to scoop one up right now because chances are you're not going to get one if you wait another day or two. So,
which makes me wonder what their initial allocation is.
It probably isn't a ton. But look, they showed the final unit at GDC, so... It's manufacturing. They're manufacturing them right now. You know, that's a long time to be able to manufacture something for its launch.
Well, I mean, it's certainly. I think if you don't get the initial shipment in October, there will be at least 3 more before Christmas. I mean, I think it'll be. You know, there's a potential for it to be the hot Christmas item that no one can get their hands on. That all of a sudden it shows up like in the last week before Christmas, which has happened. It happened with the N64. It happened with Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
It happened with the Wii to some degree.
Well, this could also be one of those intentional supply constraint deals that Nintendo's been famous for in the past, where, you know, they say, okay, we'll give you X amount of units to the retailers or whatever, and, you know, ultimately they know they're going to have more, but they want that initial rush to build the buzz because it worked. Like,
right.
You know, today every single website was reporting sold out on Amazon, sold out, and the European sites were sold out on Amazon in Europe. So it's working.
I think the key is that they said that they're not selling these at a loss.
Yeah. Which originally, they said that they were going to sell them at a loss.
Yeah. But clearly something changed, or they managed to.
Well, you know what changed?
They decided to sell for $400.
Well, we got the price of the Oculus and the Vive, and suddenly Sony was like, "Well, we can ask a lot for this," and and that's exactly what's happened. Like,
you think they were going to ask substantially less originally?
Yeah,
before
the pricing came out for Oculus and Vive, and it opened the window for them to be able to sell it at a higher price and not have people freak out about it. So, and look, I'm kind of torn on this, man, because I really. So you're trying to figure out, are these things worth it? Is Vive worth the $800? Is Oculus worth the $600? Is PlayStation VR worth the $400?
Well, I will say that I haven't used the Vive, but I have used Oculus and PlayStation VR, and I think you're definitely getting what you pay for with these headsets, because the PlayStation VR, while it is fine, is not on the level of the Oculus in terms of the display quality.
And see, here's what I fear, is that a lot of people who are going, woohoo, look at that price, have never tried a head-mounted display, ever. Like, and how would they? If they don't go to a game show, they've had no chance to try it out. So
but the upside of that is if they buy a PlayStation VR, they don't know what they're missing.
Right.
I mean, it's still going to be good to them.
Yeah.
You know, if you haven't tried an Oculus, you don't know. It's like, you know, and it's not a. I don't know if it's a $200 difference between them, really.
Yeah.
But it's just
between Oculus and PlayStation VR.
But it is noticeable if you're really looking for it.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of the same as like that whole like, oh, this game runs at 900p and this game runs at 1080p on the two different consoles. And it's like, yeah, you'll notice if you have two TVs next to each other, but you're not really going to notice if you only play one of them.
I mean, look, there are some things that PlayStation VR actually does better than Oculus. Its refresh rate is better, which is really important for VR. Like, I feel like Sony, for the amount of money it's willing to invest in the product and the price it's asking for, it was smart in a lot of ways in the areas that it focused on.
Yeah.
Like the OLED screen. That's a huge deal.
Also true of the PlayStation 4's design in general. I mean, Sony's been on the ball with how to maximize their hardware designs this generation. They really turned it around from the PlayStation 3.
Oh, without a doubt. It's like night and day. But I feel like a lot of people who are sort of screaming from the rooftops, PlayStation VR, $400. I feel like they haven't tried any of the other ones to see that, that's still a lot of money. And I mean, look, you're right. It is debatable whether Oculus is worth an extra $200. But I would argue that it's not debatable to me if Vive is worth double PlayStation VR. Again, but that's a huge commitment. But, we were talking earlier about how the camera's not included.
At the same time, if your camera's not included, you still need a PlayStation 4, plus tax, plus Move controllers. You're still spending about $800 on this thing, all told. I mean, just because you already have the PlayStation 4 doesn't mean
you're spending more than that,
actually.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's like... you still need and there's kind of the whole thing, you need a PC to use VR with one of the other headsets. Yeah, but most people already have a PC.
Right.
It's
will it run? I mean, most people are going to need a video card.
If you play games on your PC, you can probably use an Oculus, I would say.
Yeah.
Vive is obviously higher end and harder to, you need one of the higher end cards for that. But it's really, and the other thing is like, there's the big X factor, the elephant in the room is like, is this thing going to work? Is it going to be supported by developers? And by this thing, I mean VR.
Oh, in general.
And, on one hand, the Vive might give you the optimal experience for more money, but
is the content going
to be there? And like it really, you said before, like, the lower price of the PlayStation VR might mean Sony's the one in the best position to really get this thing into the hands of average consumers, and I think that might be exactly what's happening.
Oh, you can see on the graphics right there, the war is won. It's over already. I mean, and I'm, normally I would be okay with that, but my big problem with PlayStation VR being the leader, which it's going to be, and it's going to dominate the other two head-mounted displays, is that it's the weakest of all of them. And I've always...
You mean like the PlayStation 1?
And the PlayStation 2. Yeah. And and the Wii. Anytime that ever happens, I hate it, because all it does is it just holds everything down, because you're working on the lowest common denominator hardware.
And thus today we are all PC gamers.
Yeah.
Because that's the big complaint, right? That consoles hold back PC,
right?
Because you can't do stuff that the consoles can't do in some form, and now you've sort of compounded that with the VR idea.
And you can see it. I mean, look at the games for PlayStation VR; they literally look like last-gen games.
Yeah,
basically.
Although there is some, they said they're doing Battlefront VR, like a way to display it in VR. It won't be a VR game.
But they're going to have to chop down those visuals to make.
Not if it's just a display thing, because that's the thing. It's like, if you're going to make a game that has to be interacted with in that regard, I think it was going to take more power than if you're just you're just throwing it up as a display. You're basically making it 3D at that point. I don't think you're going to be looking around with your head.
You don't know, though. And if they were to do that, again, the visuals would have to be significantly cut back.
It depends how that game's built. I mean, I didn't think the game would look that good on a console to begin with. So, who knows what kind of tech they've got under the hood. The question for me is, they talked about that, and I'm like, well, I thought EA wasn't going to do VR.
Yeah, they said they weren't. But they're seeing the momentum, because they announced today there are 230 developers working on PlayStation VR. That's huge. And if you look at them, it's like all the big boys.
They showed that, Square Enix and ILM showed that lightsaber demo, which is that's how you get my attention.
Except it looks like that Kinect Star Wars game.
It does, but one hopes that the Kinect Star Wars game wouldn't have irritated me as much as if the movement had been functional and one-to-one.
Yeah.
And if you make the VR thing so that it works one-to-one with the holding a little Move controller or something like that, I'm going to have a lot more fun with that than I ever had with the Kinect. Because the Kinect had a lot of good ideas that didn't work in execution.
Yeah.
But VR, hopefully, is going to be easier to do in terms of making your control over things in the world more direct, if for lack of a better word.
Do you want to know what my favorite announcement was from the last 24 hours about PlayStation VR?
What?
That you can use it for everything. So you can watch movies in it, you can play 2D games on it, and it's basically like you have a 5-meter screen in front of your face while you're playing like your 2D games or you're watching movies.
I can see the Vita crowd really jumping on this because there's a whole thing with like, I think the Vita. There's a lot of people.
I'm thinking they're taking all those old OLED screens they had lying around for the Vita and putting them into PlayStation VR.
Because like I know there's a big thing about like everybody wants to play it on a portable screen. Everybody wants to play it with remote play. So I can't stand that stuff because the remote play has too much lag for me. And I don't want to hold the Vita that long, People are like, oh, I want to play, 60-hour RPG. I can't hold that system that long. There's no way.
I can't either.
But if the real, because a lot of the times I see people talk about this and they're like, oh, it's great because I can play stuff while my wife watches what she wants or that my roommates can use the TV. Well, now like you've got a better TV than your wife. In your head-mounted display.
So that's the thing. It's like it can take the place of a flat panel TV.
And that's like a thing. I
guess you couldn't watch TV on it unless you have View.
Right.
PlayStation View is the only way you could watch
But
television.
that's an interesting way to. That's an interesting Trojan horse, and I see some parallels to the DVD player in the PlayStation 2 on that because it's harder as a harder sell, I think. But like I think once you get this thing in the hands of people, and it looks like the lower price is going to allow them to do that. I think once people experience the idea of, because it sounds kind of like mundane when someone says doing that, but when you've actually seen it, when you see like, oh, here's your virtual TV like right in your headset, it looks really good.
Oh, like, it's an OLED screen like 2 inches from your face,
and it's like playing it on like a bigger TV than you could fit in your apartment. Basically.
Yeah, I mean OLED TVs. Like if you were to buy like a 50-inch OLED,
you're going to buy the equivalent. You're going to be spending thousands, and on this you just spent $400.
Yeah.
So like once people see that and like it kind of becomes like, hey, you can have like a really awesome 1080p TV for $400. It's kind of that, like you can adjust to, how Sony will, there will be limitations. You can't watch cable TV on or anything, but it's like, I think, and I think we've talked about, in previous shows about how Sony's big advantage was also that they are a multimedia company and they can leverage the movies and the TV and all that stuff at them, and Oculus and Vive don't really have that. And that could really prove to be a surprisingly large factor in this war.
It could also help View.
Yeah.
In all honesty.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, especially in Japan, and Pactor talked about this on Pactor Factor. In Japan, size is a big deal. Your apartment is so puny. Like, you basically have, like, the whole world sitting somewhere. Mm-hmm. You don't need a TV. You don't need to you can just sit down on a chair, and the whole world is just right there. So, yeah, I honestly think that, PlayStation VR is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be a massive hit, but I guarantee is going to, by far, be the most popular head-mounted display.
At the very least, I think it will be, when we look back on VR in 20 years, I think most people will say the first time I experienced VR was PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
I think that will be your gateway drug into this new world.
I mean, there's a possibility, too, that some people could get PlayStation VR and be like, this is cool, but it's not quite what I thought, but that's enough to convince them to then upgrade to Oculus or to Vive.
Right. Well, it's like we said, like the key to VR is going to be getting this thing on people's faces.
Yeah.
You have to experience it to really get it.
Yeah.
And I didn't really necessarily believe that they were going to be able to do that, but I think with how they've priced this and how sometimes when you need extra equipment to do something, it costs this much, but then you need to spend this much to also get this other thing, like the PlayStation camera. Like sometimes that can like torpedo you. Sometimes people think it's a hidden cost and they get pissed off. In this case, people seem to really be of the mindset, if I'm already spending $400 on this thing, what's another $60?
Well, see, here's the thing.
Which is interesting because that kind of says to me that even if you haven't experienced VR, a lot of these people understand that they're jumping in on something that it's not just Sony does the Wii or some weird little gimmick.
This whole thing is giving me a Wii vibe, though.
A little bit. And
some of the developers have said in the last couple of days, like, this is the new Wii, and that's how we are looking at developing for it, and this is how we're looking at the market for it.
And that's bad for me because I don't care about games like that.
Yeah.
But if you can sustain, that's the thing, is like the Wii hit it big with like, Wii Sports and Wii Play and Carnival games and things like that, but no one ever evolved past that.
But see, there's like a collection of games that are coming just like We Play.
Well, my hope is that the audience they're going to attract is going to be more open to expanding their experiences rather than this is this white thing I bought that I play bowling on. You know? I think close to half the Wiis that were ever sold never played anything except Wii Sports and Wii Play.
You're right, you're absolutely right.
So I'm hoping that the people that are interested in VR are a more experimental group, a more novelty-seeking group would be the marketing term.
I guess is another way to put it, because that's what it is. A lot of people just got saved, and a lot of people just looked at the Wii as like, do I even care if it plays other games? Like, all I want is Wii Sports. Like,
we'll see what happens with like how the PlayStation VR is identified with which games, or if it because like that was the thing is like the Wii was Wii Sports. Yeah, like, that was the thing that was demoed on it. That was what it came with. That was what everybody played the first night. That's what the news stations showed to demonstrate it. Yeah. So, like, it depends what PlayStation VR could have a much more varied launch lineup, and so maybe it won't be closely identified with any one thing. Maybe there's that collection of games. Maybe someone else is playing, Gollum. Maybe someone else is playing Ace Combat. Maybe, that's what I'm hoping is there's more of a variety of things for a wider audience, that it doesn't get pigeonholed into this sort of like kiddie console idea that the Wii did or some equivalent.
Yeah, and then talking about not having the PlayStation camera or the Move controllers packed in, I mean, the way I looked at it is like a lot of people have those already. And so
I don't think many people have the PlayStation 4 camera. I think a lot of people.
I think they sold pretty well at launch. I mean, I have it.
I think not enough to matter.
But think about it, like, I do have it already. And so if they charge $450 with it packed in, and I'm like, but I already have one, like, some people are going to get screwed, whereas if you don't have it packed in, nobody gets screwed.
Well, as I heard it, there's a more expensive package that includes it.
There is. There will be a bundle that includes Move controllers. And
now I have two Move controllers somewhere. I think.
I hope I didn't leave the batteries in them, because if I did, they're probably ruined now.
Yeah, I had that happen where when I got the Wii and the Wii U and I transferred my Wii data to it, I had to get a Wii controller, so I went and got my default Wii controller was the gold Skyward Sword controller with a Motion Plus built in, and it won't work. I opened it up and it was just crusted with the battery leakage, and so I cleaned it all. I cleaned it all out, and it works fine.
It works.
Oh yeah,
I'm surprised to hear that.
I had to take it apart a little bit and soak some of the metal components in like a solution to get it off and stuff. But it works fine. There's a little bit of crust still, but on the inside, but like it's great. But yeah, take your damn batteries out of your controllers before you throw them in a drawer.
Yeah, I have a feeling my Move controllers may have a little corrosion going on.
I don't remember if I left I should go look.
When I
get home, I'm gonna look.
I use them.
I use them. You know why I have Move controllers? I bought them secondhand off of eBay. With light gun attachment, so I could play the House of the Dead games on the PlayStation 3.
Well, they had that crazy blaster for like Killzone that they made, where you could snap it in there. I used it for like Tumble. I think that was like my favorite Move game, and now they've actually made like Tumble VR for PlayStation VR. So I'm sure I'll probably get into that. But so before we move on to the next topic, has this changed anything for you, Matt? This price and release date? I mean, you had said before you weren't really going to buy any of them. Are you still not going to buy any of them?
Probably not.
Yeah.
To some degree, I think it depends on what core, for lack of a better term, core games they announce. Like if Ace Combat is, this year, maybe I'll think about it. If something Star Wars shows up, that'll be a temptation, because I know Lucasfilm has, and that ILM experimental group they've formed are kind of talking about taking old Star Wars games and making VR versions of them. Not VR versions, but ones you can play within VR.
Right.
So even if it's not totally VR, I'll play Rogue Squadron in VR all day. So it kind of depends on the games at this point. Yeah. But I will say, I am no longer skeptical about PlayStation VR's chances of success. I think they've got it right now. Barring any weird surprises or the game's looking absolutely horrid.
Which some of them do look pretty bad.
Some of them do, but like hopefully those are more like $5 games.
The first gen
like
of games,
but they need to bring the AAA. to some. They need to bring the wow factor.
I haven't seen that yet.
Not yet, not at all. And that's what I need to see. And I think now that all is announced and the dust is a little bit settled in terms of where everybody's pieces are starting from, I think Sony has the best chance to deliver that more regularly and longer in the face of maybe a slow-selling product. Because, they have a direct development community that's attached to this thing needing to be successful, whereas Oculus and Vive, they're not really connected. Sony's kind of got the total package there in terms of
the whole ecosystem.
They have the whole thing right there in front of their face.
40 million installed base.
Whereas Oculus and Vive are very much, we're selling this thing separate, and I hope people make stuff for it. And so while those two may be more advanced technologically, it seems to me that Sony is going to be the one of the three that has the ability to keep feeding their product with software.
Yeah, here's what I would say. I would say the price didn't really change my mind in any way, shape, or form.
I think we thought that
because
was the price
I assumed that was going to be the price. But what has changed my impression is the reaction to the price. Mm-hmm. The fact that people are overwhelmingly saying that this is a great price, Sony nailed it. I was really surprised to see that, to be honest.
I worked in retail too long to be surprised by that reaction, really. I wasn't sure if it would be as widespread as it is, but I guess, I don't think it's the Oculus's 600 so much as the Vive's 800.
Yeah.
Because the fact that 600 is a lot of money.
Yeah. So is 400.
So it's 400, but 600 is a lot of money. And then the next one comes out, it's oh, by the way, we're 800. And people are oh my God, VR is crazy. And then the third one to announce is half of the second one. And I think that, any consumer, if someone pulled that trick on you in a retail store, it would work too.
It would,
that's basic, purchase psychology. It's how we work. And
I just wonder if families, though, and I mean, that's what you need for that mass market adoption. You need the moms and the dads to want to buy it for their kids and things like that, which you're not supposed to, because you're supposed to be 13 and older to use PlayStation VR because your eyes aren't fully developed yet. But right, they're going to buy them anyway. But I feel like for that group of people, they're going to look at it but I just spent $400 for this damn thing.
Well, and the other thing about the family idea...
And now you want to spend another $400
Well, also, you want to spend another $400 so your kid can stick this thing on their head and never see you again.
Well, some parents might be okay with that.
To some degree, but it's whereas, a lot of times video games are seen as kind of a kind of on-the-couch, social experience in a lot of ways. The VR is, by definition, an isolating one.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be hard... I know a lot.
Well, they did show that new Playroom game that's designed all around that.
But at the same time, I think it's going to be hard for some families to sort of justify the idea of spending that much money for something that only one person can use at one time. Because I know in my family, when I was growing up, if this had happened, all my parents would have seen would have been the next thing my sister and I were going to fight over.
Right.
So
who's going to get to turn
who gets to use the goggles?
Right.
So
that's a good point, actually. That's a really good point.
We'll see. I mean, I think most of VR early adopters are going to be people like us, people who buy it for themselves.
I'm just talking about for this thing to become a huge success. This is the type of people they need to
see, that's why I think the Wii comparisons are a little disingenuous, because the Wii, by default, you bought that thing, you set it up, and all of a sudden 4 people were playing together on the couch.
And it was cheap.
But that's not the... On this, you buy it, you set it up, and one person gets to do something, and everyone else is like, what's it like? That's not a... that's not a draw in that regard.
You can see the TV, and that's actually so that we've also found out what that extra little box is for. It basically streams the feed to the television. And it also handles the social network that's built around.
Yeah, it seems to take a lot of what would have been the burden of the display processing off the PlayStation 4.
Right.
Which is good, because it means that it can maybe run much better looking games than we originally thought it would.
Well, I don't think it's the actual process. I don't think it's the actual processing.
It's not, but I think it does a similar thing where the PlayStation 3 had a thing where they upgraded it later to be able to do 3D Blu-rays, which a lot of people thought was impossible. But it turned out to just be sort of this weird little thing, the little codec thing you run it through before you put it out through the video output. Yeah. And so maybe they figured out something like that for this. Maybe it wouldn't work for a real kind of intricate VR game, but I bet that's how you do cinema, the cinema display thing.
I look at it more like the Wii U, where you're not actually rendering twice. You're sending that signal to the gamepad, and in this case, you're sending that signal from that box to your television screen. At least, look, the details are pretty murky on it so far. But what they have said that it is for the social network built around PlayStation VR and to get that other display sent to your TV so people can see what you're doing while you're using your PlayStation VR.
My instinct tells me it's similar to like the quote unquote second brain in the back of the dinosaur. Like helps move the legs a little bit, so the brain doesn't have to worry about it.
Right.
So I mean, smart.
Yeah, everything about this is smart. And look, Sony's being pretty cutthroat by charging what they're charging, knowing that now they're making a profit when they said originally they weren't going to. But you know what? Like,
I think
you'd
that's
be
a good
stupid
thing.
if you didn't.
Right. Well, also I think it's if you're worried about the future of VR, especially in will it become because Sony does have a history of these gadgets like not selling up to snuff how they expected, and then they just sort of slowly, quietly forget about them.
Yeah, like the Move, which is being
revived, or the camera, or the iToy, or that book thing, or all that stuff just sort of quietly fades away. But if they're selling this thing at a profit, that means at least that every one they sell is good for them inherently. They don't have to sell more software to make up for it.
Right.
So hopefully that means that this thing will be something that Sony is willing to stand behind and promote for a long time until it hits critical mass.
Look, but just to close it out, I have to say that I hate myself for this, but I think that I have kind of decided that I'm probably going to buy PlayStation VR in the last 24 hours.
And not Oculus?
Yeah, because it's going to be the industry leader, and it's going to have the most games, and it's going to be the one that matters. It's going to be the one everyone's talking about. It's going to be the one that people have interest in, most importantly. Because if everybody on Sifted has PlayStation VR and they don't have Oculus or Vive, what good does it do for me to buy those other two and do coverage on them when no one has them? They don't care. You can see that with platforms on Sifted already. The Wii U generally does a lot less traffic on Sifted because most of the people on Sifted have a PlayStation 4. And again, I can see it because I can look at the SIFT ratings for everybody. In our admin, we have a graph that shows the aggregate of everybody's SIFT ratings. So I can see how much everybody cares about everything. And so you have PlayStation 4 all the way up here, Xbox One right here, Wii U right here, VR pretty low actually. So, just for the fact of, serving our audience, in all honesty, probably, even though the fidelity's a little lower, probably playing the best VR games. Because if that's what everybody buys, that's what the developers are going to make games for. And they may not look quite as good. It's almost going to be like the N64 versus the PlayStation all over again. With the Vive and Oculus being the N64, and then PlayStation VR being the PlayStation. I hated that era because all these great games were coming out on the PlayStation and they looked awful. And I was like, this game, if it were on N64 or Dreamcast or whatever, it could look so much better. But developers aren't going to make games for a platform that nobody owns. And so, sadly, it looks like I'm probably going to invest in PlayStation VR. Luckily, I do have the camera and the Move controllers already, so it is just a straight-up $400 purchase for me. But I'm really disappointed. That's not the one I want to own, I guess is the best way to put it. And maybe, eventually I gather up some cash and I can afford one of the other ones. But for now, and I'm sure everyone's looking at it this way, the smart money is on PlayStation VR. That's all there is to it. Especially when I saw that list of developers, 230 developers. And then on the same day, Oculus announces its launch lineup. And it's 30 games, which is good, but if you look at them, they're all little demos. There's no real, other than Insomniac's game, they're all just, in Lucky's Tale, they're all just these little experiences. And look, they're selling them for $20 a piece, most of them. So it's not, they're smart with their pricing on it. But I see that, and then 10 minutes later, I see this list this long of developers making games for PlayStation VR, and I was just it's over, man. It's over. It's going to be the market leader, no matter how many. And I still can't believe all these companies investing at least billions of dollars in their own headsets. How stupid are they? Do they really think they have a chance? It's it's too late.
Yeah, that's over.
There's not going to be enough market to support 3 of them. And
it's not like making a third-party controller where you can charge $19 versus the official's $39 kind of thing.
There was one that was just announced yesterday that's the whole computer is in the head-mounted display, so you don't need an extra computer. But they haven't announced the price. That's going to cost $1,000. It's over. The war is won, people. I just think that was it. Just, again, it wasn't so much the price, because it's what I expected all along. It's the reaction to the price. I think people just expected VR costs X amount of dollars. Okay, this costs less than X. Sold.
Yeah, if I were Sony, I'd be sending some fruit baskets to Oculus and Vive right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I saw the journalist did it too. Like because when we curate, we see all the content from all these websites coming in, and every one of them was like, Sony nails it with price. Sony gets the price right. Sony just won. Like, just one story after another. Same tale, different headline. Even some of the headlines were almost identical. So,
and they hit that because, like you say, like they hit. They hit the profit point. If they realize they could sell it for more. But that's smart because like $400 is enough to feel like it's way less than $600 or $800. Yeah. But it's not low enough that it feels like, oh, this must be cheap crap compared to the other two.
It also gives them a little wiggle room if after obviously launch is going to go well if they've already sold out their launch allotment. But if things really cool down after that, they have some leeway to lower the price, like right out of the gate. So, Sony, man, what a generation Sony is having.
Yeah.
They are about to convince people to give them $800+ for hardware in one generation, man. Think about that.
And just one generation before, they couldn't convince people to give them $600.
Yeah, or even less. Yeah. PlayStation 3 caught up towards the end there. It was doing pretty well because of all of its first-party stuff, but
early on, $599 was a nail in the coffin.
Yeah, you're right. And they couldn't convince people to spend $600. No. Now they're willing to spend over $800. So.
We just don't make them all spend it all at once. That's the secret.
Yeah. I guess that is. Just draw it out. It hasn't been that long.
No. But apparently 2 years after you pay $400 for the system is when to sell me a $400 add-on.
Yeah, pretty much.
But and somewhere out in the ether, the people that worked at Sega in the early 90s are going like, what the hell?
Yeah. This is normally the point in the conversation where I go, it's going to be interesting to watch, but honestly, it's not going to be.
No. We just have to wait until it happens.
Yeah, basically, you're going to see Sony dominate, and you're going to see these other two trying to pick up the table scraps, trying to survive, essentially. And Vive, I think, is really going to have a tough.
Vive's going to struggle, I think. I think Oculus Rift has an easier time because it's backed by Facebook, and Facebook's never going to let that thing down because Facebook wants it to be the virtual
social
Facebook
platform.
Yeah, they want it to be like, they want you to put your VR helmet on when you go to talk to your friends on Facebook. That's what they want. That's their end game. That's what they want to own.
Yeah.
And so,
games are just periphery.
Yeah, they'll back Rift until that happens, basically, I think. They have enough money to burn that they can absorb that. But Sony's going to provide games. Sony's about the games and the content. So, as much as it is kind of disappointing that the winner might end up being the weaker, it's A, nothing new, and B, content is king. I got to go where the games are.
It is, yep.
So if they're the ones serving
That's exactly what I just said.
Yeah, they're serving up the games, that's where I'll go. I haven't made a choice yet because I need to see what is coming out this year.
One thing that will be interesting to watch, not related to Sony versus the others, is Sony's first-party output. How is that going to affect Sony's 2D games?
Will there be
as many as there would have been?
Will they bring in more people to do stuff that's exclusive to them? Because that's what I would think. You can hire that many developers in, not hire them, but you get them involved. You got to take a chunk of them and be like, okay, you guys are making this game for us.
Right.
No one else gets this. You don't get to put this on PC. Which has been not a common proposition in recent years because there's just too much money in putting your little console or indie style game on Steam,
everything.
And when the Steam sale rolls around, your sales go up by 4,000%, and even though you're selling it for $2 a pop, and all
you're trying to do is turn a profit.
You turn in profit.
That's it.
But if Sony can sign you to some deal where they're like, okay, we're going to give you, basically bribe you to keep it exclusive, at least for a year or something, that could be a big deal. That's because that's the thing is you have to make it so Oculus owners can't just sit back and wait for the PlayStation content to show up on PC looking better.
Yeah.
That would be my priority as Sony right now.
Yep. So I'm sure we'll get a bunch of comment or questions from you guys at the end of the show about PlayStation VR, but I feel like we've wrung this topic pretty dry. It seems like we talk about some version of VR every week on the show. And the funny part is I never get tired of talking about it. I don't know if you guys get sick of hearing about it. It doesn't seem like it. You guys never complain in the comments or anything, but it's just such a new frontier. And after talking about 2D video games, for me personally, for the last 18 years in this industry, it's refreshing to talk about this new paradigm. And so I could probably just do a whole GameFace just sitting here talking with Matt about PlayStation VR. But we realize some of you guys aren't interested.
In October, we might.
Yep, exactly. I mean, look, some people don't even have a PlayStation 4. Some of you guys are Xbox owners or Nintendo fans and may not have either. So we're going to move on. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be lots more conversation about this in the coming months, leading us, especially in October.
My question is, I think Oculus, it's... I worked in video retail for so long, and I have cleaned enough video store porn rooms in my time that my main...
I don't know if I want to hear it.
My main question is, will the fact that Oculus is going to have a lot more porn on it matter?
That's a good point. Well, here's the thing. You can watch porn...
Oh, you can watch it on PlayStation VR.
But it's not actually VR.
But it's not... these programs...
Because porn does always decide the format wars.
It does. Yeah. Porn has decided format wars in the past, and...
it will again.
There is a certain segment of the population that I think is very excited about this new technology we call teledildonics. Is
that a real term?
That is a real
just make
term.
that up?
No, I did not make that up. That is a real term that was actually the first time I ever saw it was a press release sent to me while we were still at Tech TV. Back in 2003.
Wow.
People have been working on this forever.
Yeah.
And Oculus is going to be the hub of that.
Yeah.
And so my question in terms of the real competition between these two different things is how pervy
are people?
Is the audience?
Yeah. Because Sony's
no judgment.
closed system. Yeah.
No judgment. I'm just saying.
Sony will never have porn games.
No. The closest you'll get is Dead or Alive Extreme 3 or the equivalent, which does support PlayStation VR.
Yeah, or you can just oogle the girls or whatever.
Yeah. Already you've got sites where it's just just cross your eyes like Magic Eye style and look, the porn's in 3D. This is something the porn industry is on top of.
Oh yeah, no pun intended.
Pun intended. Pun intended.
Of course.
So that is a kind of a secondary battle. Yeah. That I don't think Sony...
That will be interesting to watch.
Sony has no prayer.
Pun intended.
Sony has no prayer of winning that competition.
Yeah.
But my question is, does that competition matter?
Yeah.
I
think it does.
On a level that can decide the bigger battle.
Well, I think for adults who have disposable income, it does.
I think it is a real question. Yeah. And maybe not necessarily relevant to our subject matter, but it's going to be relevant when
I think it's relevant to our audience.
Our audience, yes. Subject matter, not necessarily, unless we start seeing some...
I'm not saying it, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, just saying. Because there is a chance, the Japanese developers are all over this already, and there's a chance that a good chunk of the Japanese gaming public will simply disappear into their headsets and we'll never see them again.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a theory that the reason we've never run into another alien civilization or intelligence is because once a civilization develops virtual reality, they all jump into the Matrix and that's it.
It doesn't matter.
Exploration stops.
Yeah, there's no point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you explore the universe when you can just go in and go there? It's somewhere out there. There's a planet of people that's all plugged into a giant internet. They're just playing No Man's Sky forever.
They're living No Man's Sky. What are you talking about? All right, we got to move on. We got 5 other topics we got to get to. I think we sucked up about an hour talking about PlayStation VR there. So, again, lots to talk about, but we do need to move on. We're going to move on and talk about the NPD report for February, Matt. First thing we should say is game sales down 12% year over year compared to last year, the same time period. And, a lot of times you could say, it was a soft release schedule. It really wasn't a soft release schedule.
There were some solid things in February.
Far Cry Primal takes the #1 spot. It also did huge in Europe. I think it was Far Cry's best ever selling game or quickest selling to X number of units sold or whatever. Everyone's read my game eval. I like the game a lot. I think it's deserving of its sales. We'll see if
I like it a lot. I think it might be my favorite Far Cry.
Yeah. I think a lot. I've seen that a lot. It's certainly the most different Far Cry. Not the most groundbreaking, though. I would say probably Far Cry 2 is the most
Far Cry 2 is what's, crystallized the concept of the series. But
Yeah.
I think Far Cry Primal is where that concept found its setting.
Yeah.
And I do think it's interesting that this is like the Far Cry where all the reviews decided to finally like get tired of it.
Yeah,
it was weird. It's weird to me. It's like why did you think this one was okay to like say like, oh, it sucks and it's boring and it's Ubisofty, and it's like like everyone was like, we've done this forever. I'm just like, well, yeah, but like it's pretty good.
Well, this is one of those cases where the consumers were like, screw you.
Yeah,
I'm not sick of this yet.
Apparently not.
I mean, look, a lot of people look for value in games, they know when they get a Far Cry game, they can play that game for a long time, and there's going to be DLC, and they've been pretty good with supporting with DLC. I wouldn't be surprised to see Far Cry Primal in the top 5 next month as well.
No. And there's a point at which, like, look, if that, that's how Far Cry plays. People like Far Cry. It's like, are you going to rip the new Mario game because you jump and break blocks and land on mushrooms?
Yeah.
That's what people want when they buy that game.
There's a picking and choosing of when to apply certain criteria to game reviews these days.
Like, you're going to get angry that like the next Zelda, like we have to find a shield and we have to find a bomb bag and we have to, it's like there are certain elements that people expect from a series, and Far Cry has those elements, and people expect it, and they like it, apparently, because they keep buying it.
I'll be interested to see the reviews for Dark Souls 3 and see if they decide to apply that same principle to the Dark Souls series.
Interesting,
Or if they'll cower in fear of the Dark Souls fans, which, believe me, I got a little taste of that with my opinions on Bloodborne. So, so we'll see. I was brave enough to say it, though, and we'll see if some of the other people are as well. So, there's certainly some weird double standards going on there, but then you get into the whole, well, this is this reviewer's opinion, and maybe somebody else reviews it, blah, 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 blah. We can just talk about that for hours as well. Number 2, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, and number 3, Grand Theft Auto 5.
Who doesn't have Grand Theft Auto 5?
Who? I mean, what PAX says is that every time somebody buys a new console,
they buy
the first game they buy is GTA 5.
Which makes sense.
It does. It totally makes sense.
If you haven't played that yet,
Well, it makes sense provided you didn't have a console last generation where you could play.
But I mean, I bought the PS4 version of GTA 5, and I played all the way through the 360 version of it.
Yeah.
And like I played all the way through like 100% on
PS4.
PS4. I didn't get the platinum because I didn't get to level 100 in multiplayer, but I got to like level 70. I mean, I played that game a lot on PS4.
And people are still playing it, still putting out DLC for it. I just think Call of Duty not so much. I mean, it's only 3 months old, 4 months old. And it does this every time anyway.
Right.
But seeing Grand Theft Auto 5, a game from, what year did it even come out?
Was that 2012?
Yeah. Or 2013.
It was 2013.
Yeah. A 3-year-old game. Number 3 on the chart.
GTA.
That to me, I mean, you're talking about the 12% dip year over year. I mean, if people are buying Grand Theft Auto 5, they're not buying new software. So...
No.
I mean, the price drops on the consoles has something to do with that dip as well, because they were $400 or more last year. Now they're $350, $300. So,
and you wonder why Rockstar, it's like, oh, their releases, there's so few of them, and it's like, well, apparently it's all about making that GTA, right?
Seriously.
So,
all right, so let's go to number 4, Naruto Shippuden, and I'm sure I mispronounced that, and someone's going to correct me, both in the live stream and in the comments below the video on Sifted. Ultimate Ninja Storm 4.
We used to mispronounce that game on purpose on
just to piss people off. Yeah.
Naruto.
Yeah, I'm sure I pronounced Shippuden or however you say it. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong as well.
Shippuden is close enough.
Yeah. Anyway, you know what game I'm talking about, people.
Ultimate Ninja Storm.
Number 4, that game comes in. I'm surprised at that.
I'm not really. That's a big property, and there's a certain segment, a certain age
Part 4.
Yeah.
Part 4.
They grew up with it, and they love it, and they play it, and that's all there is to it.
Here's the weird thing about Naruto.
Also, those games, I don't care about Naruto at all, but those games are beautiful.
They are gorgeous, but they keep telling the same story over and over again.
Yeah, but that's what people want, apparently.
Why?
I don't know. The Dragon Ball games are like that, too. It's just like, we're going to tell this story over and over and over. It's like,
why?
It's going to be slightly prettier and play a little better, and that's all there is to it. And I mean, but also, like, it's a competition game. It's a fighting game. There are actual tournaments now that stream on Twitch. Like, there's money involved in them and stuff, and it's like, it's certainly not going to take over for League of Legends or Street Fighter V anytime soon, but like, there's a community around the Ultimate Ninja Storm games. So.
Why this is more surprising to me, we will become more clear here in a minute. So let's move along. NBA 2K16 number 5, no big surprise.
Yeah.
Sports game, NBA playoffs about to start. Isn't that old, been out a few months. Totally cool with that. Lego Marvel Avengers. Comes in at number 6.
A little lower than I might have expected.
Lower?
Yeah.
Really?
Those games tend to sell. Remember Jurassic Park?
Yeah, you're right. And it had legs, too, in Europe at least.
I think the thing is they're releasing this too late. You know, if they'd released...
talk about fatigue.
Yeah.
There's something that's got fatigue. This game also
if they'd
got
released it alongside,
reviews, pretty much.
Yeah, well, because there's not a lot left to it. You know, there's not. I don't think they have any real new ideas left for the superhero stuff in the Lego games.
Lego games are like review proof.
Pretty much. But like I think if they'd released this last summer, like up alongside Age of Ultron and Ant-Man, I think it would have done much better because it would have been fresher in people's minds.
It's still doing pretty darn
It's still doing well, but like I think, you know,
it is out on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7
platforms. Is it not on PC? PC is not listed here.
I think it is on PC,
I think it is,
though.
yeah.
So that would be 8 platforms.
8 platforms.
And it's probably on iOS and Android as well.
I'm sure there will be a version, yeah. But, you know, I just think it's getting lost in the shuffle because, like, no one's thinking about Marvel right now because, Star Wars really took over the zeitgeist in December, and now Batman vs. Superman is the big deal.
Civil War stuff's starting to heat up, though. They
but it's just not there yet.
For this
I wouldn't be surprised if we see this game hang on the charts for a few months as Civil War comes and like makes people think about Marvel again.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Now this is the game that made my eyes pop out at Naruto. Street Fighter V comes in at number 7, getting its lunch eaten by Naruto. Can we say at this point, Matt, that Street Fighter V is a huge bomb?
No.
No?
I need to see the digital sales.
Man.
I think a lot of people bought this game digitally.
This game has sold 60,000 copies in Japan so far, Matt. 60,000.
I want to see the digital sales.
Still. Even if they're double that, and let's say in Japan they're double that, which I highly doubt. That's 200,000 in Japan. That's really bad. Really bad.
I still say, like, we'll wait and see what, like, the sales turn out to be once they finish the game. Because the people buying it right now, you're either people that don't know it's not finished, or it's people that want to get competition time in preparation for tournaments like EVO.
I just think it's too late. It's like the people who would buy this on an impulse didn't buy it. And no amount of stories written about it or re-reviews, or it's not going to make a difference for those people.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's ever going to sell up to the level of like the current Mortal Kombat.
Because look, we had a conversation before the game came out, and I was actually saying that I didn't think it was going to do that well. But I still thought it would do eventually like 2 or 3 million. You thought it would do a little better than the 2 or 3 million. It's not going to hit the 2 or 3 million.
Not in retail.
No.
But I need to see I would love to see what digital sales are. The argument could be made if the digital sales were that high, Capcom would have said something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are more people signing up for the EVO Street Fighter V tournament right now than have ever signed up for Street Fighter 4.
No, I get that, but so, that's a very small group of people.
It is a very small group of people, but the point is that like that's representative of the interest, because very few people who can get to Vegas to play an EVO and have the courage to even throw their fucking stick in the ring for that.
Yeah.
That says to me that there's a lot of people out there that are playing this game, and I think a lot of them bought it digitally. Because it doesn't make sense. Why would you ever want the disc version of this game? It's
to resell it.
But for what? It's always online. It's going to be updated for years, according to Capcom. You want to play online. You don't want to have to put a disc in every time you want to play a couple rounds. Like digital. This game makes more sense to buy digital than just about anything else on my PlayStation 4.
It does, but you can't collect ones and zeros.
Right, but you can fucking.
And people like to collect stuff.
Yeah, but you can tell how many people bought it versus how many people didn't buy a retail copy.
Yeah.
I collect I have a Street Fighter collection too, but I bought the digital version.
Yeah.
I have no physical copy of Street Fighter V.
Well, they sent me the digital version for review, and I'm not going to go buy it because I didn't enjoy it a ton. But I mean, look, you have to agree with me that you're surprised at the sales of this game.
I'm surprised it's in the bottom 5. Yeah.
And in Japan, it's already flatlined.
Japan is kind of a lost cause at this point, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, Japan is all mobile now.
No, I mean, look, there are games that sell. I mean, look, its opening week it was 8th. It got beaten by Kamen Riders.
Yeah, but again, Japan is even more digital friendly. So who knows?
I'm flabbergasted by the performance of Street Fighter V. I am blown away in my wildest Pessimism. I would have never guessed this game would sell this poorly. Ever. And again, a lot of times I can look at how things do on Sifted, and that's a good indicator of how they're going to do at retail. This one actually did pretty well on the site as far as traffic and people's interest in the game. It waned a little bit towards the end because it was just like an overload of media at a certain point. Yeah. But, I mean, overall, people were into it, but...
People are still into it. The community is extremely large and extremely healthy in terms of the fighting game community surrounding it. The tournaments are doing very well and having record sign-ups at all times. It's just that's just not translating into the casual sales that are what put something on the top of the NPD.
Yeah.
And, the real question, because as long as the community is healthy, I don't really care how many copies it sells, because I'm not Capcom. The question is, are the sales, digital plus physical, a disappointment to Capcom?
Right. That's all that matters, really. But
if they are they going to continue to support it in the face of the community? So, because the community is all over. Community likes it a lot, I think. The fighting game community has really embraced it, and people were worried that
as long as you play it online, it's fine.
Yeah, but again, the community was worried that people wouldn't want to move on from Ultra Street Fighter 4. That Ultra Street Fighter 4's life wasn't over yet, and the community would be angry
after like a decade.
Would be angry about having forced to move on in Evo, because there's no Ultra Street Fighter 4 in Evo.
Right.
Because it's all Street Fighter 5. Capcom helps sponsor this Capcom Tour tournament, which means you promote the game that Capcom wants promoted, which means Street Fighter 5.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of worry that people would be kind of like irritated were being forced to play Street Fighter 5 for this Capcom Tour, and would they kind of walk away? Would they do side tournaments, and would more people play the Street Fighter 4 side tournaments than in the official Street Fighter 5 tournament? And the answer to that has turned out to be a gigantic capital N, capital O. No one is doing that. Everyone is playing Street Fighter 5. So the community is super healthy in that regard. But again, the last Mortal Kombat sold what? Like 10 million copies?
I don't think it sold that much, but it sold like over 5.
A lot.
Yeah.
It was like
it did really
high for a fighting game in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Like even by Street Fighter 4 standards.
Yeah.
Which Street Fighter 4 sold about the same amount, but it took like 4 versions to do that, whereas a Mortal Kombat game sells that much in one version.
I mean, it could just be the reviews just turn people off.
Could be.
There were really no glowing reviews for the game before launch.
I think you're going to have to hope this game has legs. Long legs that extend past when Capcom finishes giving us the rest of the game via DLC. Yeah. That's the other reason I think the disc thing is... I think is like, if you find out that like, this game's going to be like eventually updated with this extra story mode and these challenge modes, like it's basically like, okay, the thing that's on the disc is worthless.
Yeah.
Like unless you intend to trade this in later, there's no reason not to buy the digital version of this game. So I think the digital sales on this were unusually high, like disproportionately high, even compared to any other regular AAA release.
I probably agree with that, but
I would like to see them release.
I still think it's Bomba.
I don't know if it's Bomba. I think it's more disappointment.
Yeah, that could be. All right, we got to move on. Number 8, Minecraft, which will never go away, ever.
No.
Like literally, I wonder if like 3 or 4 years from now, it'll still be in the top 10.
Sure. New babies will be born, and they need a copy of Minecraft.
Yeah, you're right.
Like that's really what's happening.
What it is.
Like, it is.
Yeah,
like
the population, as they get to that age, they just buy Minecraft. It's insane. Microsoft.
You want to talk about families buying shit to play together? Minecraft.
Yeah. Everybody thought Microsoft was insane when it bought Minecraft for all that money.
I didn't. And in 10 years, or 15, 20 years, when all those kids that grew up playing Minecraft on a pad are all of a sudden like in their 20s and early 30s, and they're all getting all nostalgic, and they're having kids of their own, and they want to play Minecraft with their kids, guess who's going to be raking in all the money?
On the holodeck or wherever, whatever we're playing games with at that point.
Yeah, we're all going to, computer and simulation. And,
exactly.
Everyone's going to be building Minecraft with their in their home office holodeck with their HoloLens 4.0.
You won't even have to probably move your fingers. You just think it, and the block just moves.
Yeah. Computer.
Minecraft. That biggest legs ever, maybe, for a video game.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's the thing is like, and that's going to be the conflict, I think, with Nintendo is like you have a generation of children coming up right now
that are Minecraft fans.
That are playing Minecraft and have no attachment to Mario.
Yeah. And
so what happens when you end up in that sort of negative space window where there's like 10 years, because let's say Nintendo comes back with the NX, and the NX is like a hit on like NES levels,
which is looking really tough if you start thinking about the money.
Let's go with the hypothetical here. You're gonna have like this 10-year hole
Yeah.
where the adults that were running through this new generation have no nostalgia for Nintendo games.
You're right. Yeah.
And that could be the nail in the coffin.
That really finishes Nintendo.
Because for all the failures to engage a new generation Nintendo may have had, they've always had those 12 million Nintendo fans that were already there to buy their systems and keep them afloat. And if that goes away in 15 to 20 years, who knows? Who knows where we are then? But
who
by
knows
then,
where Nintendo's going to be in 5 years?
Nintendo could be a very different company inside of 2 years.
Yeah.
Even, depending on what happens with Pokemon Go.
Depending on what happens with the NX.
Yeah, depending.
I mean, NX coming out, if it really does come out this year, I think that'd be a huge mistake.
Pachter doesn't think it's this year.
He doesn't, yeah.
Although some people,
and I don't either. But...
some people are taking that as confirmation that it is this year.
Right, yeah, because some people just say whatever he says, the exact opposite is
and
true.
I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I believe the anti-Pachter divining formula.
Right.
But I'm still going to be a little shocked if it's not this. And I guess we're going to find out soon because I guess that finance call in April is expected. They're going to say they have new hardware coming in this fiscal.
Well, think about all that money that's going to go towards PlayStation VR.
Yeah. But think about if you're Nintendo and you don't believe in VR.
I think that's a big mistake.
I do too, but Nintendo.
It is, yeah. All right, let's move on. Number 9, Fire Emblem Fates.
Speaking of Nintendo.
Right. And this was just one of several versions of this game. According to Nintendo, if all the versions were added up, it would have been in 3rd place and would have sold more than Grand Theft Auto 5.
Huh.
And I think that would have put him at, I think all the versions together sold, I don't want to quote it. It was either 310,000 or 410,000. But, 3DS has a big install base. But it is a great game. It deserves the sales that it gets. And it's good to see that this is one case where the press actually worked. It got great reviews. People saw the reviews. People went out and bought it.
And I think this one also has a substantial digital sale.
Probably,
situation,
yeah.
Because once you buy one, it then offers you the chance to buy at a lower cost in the game. You can buy digital copies of the other 2.
Right.
So I'm sure a lot of people did that and made Nintendo even more money.
And this was really confusing. Every review, there was some sites actually went so far as to do 3 separate reviews for this game.
Well, they are totally different games, except for the first
totally
6 chapters.
Different. Yeah, but
you can skip.
One's for
95%.
noobs, one's for
They're 95% different.
A lot of times,
and then the 3rd one didn't even come out until 2 weeks later.
Right.
Because that's the one you're supposed to play last.
Yeah. A lot of times when you do stuff like that, you just face plant. But Nintendo managed to massage that situation very well, and the game sold great. It deserves it.
It's a good game.
Yeah, it is a good game. And the last one was great, too. It's probably my favorite 3DS game. Now, this is probably my new favorite 3DS game. Number 10, to round it out, Fallout 4.
Yeah. Do we know how this game did overall? How Fallout 4 sold?
It did well. I think it hasn't had the legs that Bethesda had hoped it would have.
Because, Skyrim and Fallout 3 were pretty massive.
They lasted forever in the charts.
And there were also there was also kind of that feeling of oh wow, Bethesda games get bigger every time they release one, and I feel like this one didn't build on Skyrim sales-wise.
Yeah. Oh, no, it definitely didn't. Skyrim to this point in time, has outsold Fallout 4. I don't know if the DLC will reinvigorate, get more people to buy it. But the other thing with Bethesda is, it needs these games to sell that amount.
Because they only release so many.
Right. It's some publishers would be well, didn't sell quite as well as the last one, but
we got something else next quarter.
We still made a ton of money off of this game.
They do have Doom coming, though, so we'll see if that can boost them a little bit. And who
Open
knows?
beta for that coming soon.
They've got who knows what to announce at E3.
Yeah.
Well,
they already said they're working on 3 big new games or whatever.
But presumably one of them is going to be this fall because that seems to be how they're rolling now.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, maybe it's not that big a deal that this game underperforms in comparison to Skyrim.
I mean, look, I'm surprised to see Naruto outsell Fallout 4, even though Fallout 4 has been out for a few months.
Well, we'll see if Naruto's still around next month.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think it will be.
Because I think we all know what's going to be on top for March.
Yeah.
It's going to be Ubisoft again.
Yeah. But it is crazy. It still blows my mind that Naruto outsold Street Fighter. I just cannot get over that, Matt. I mean, Naruto, that is the same game that they have put out 4 times.
Yeah, but if you want single-player content, Naruto's got it. Naruto's got something for you there.
Vaguely.
Oh, it's got... If you're interested in that show, It lets you play the show.
Not really. I mean, you're still just battling in this like arena area.
Have you seen the show? Because that's all it is.
Yeah.
That's
Screaming
all
and
it
fighting.
is. Yeah.
I'm blown away by the fact that Street Fighter was outsold by that game. All right, it's time to move on to the next topic of the Big Six, where we're going to talk about games that have been canceled that totally devastated us for one reason or another. So, Matt, you're going to start. What is your first pick? We're both going to pick two games. Matt, what is your first pick for a game that when you found out it was canceled, you were just beside yourself?
My first pick would be Propeller Arena for the Dreamcast.
Wow.
Which, maybe this is a deep cut, but this was like an online dogfighting like multiplayer game for the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
That was supposed to come out near the end of 2001. And one of the things you could do to beat someone is you could basically outmaneuver them, and if they crashed into a building, they would be destroyed, or a rock or whatever, they'd be destroyed. Now, after September in 2001, Sega didn't think it was a good idea to release a game that featured planes hitting buildings for some reason. They were probably right.
I love this trailer, by the way. Ice World.
Ice World. There's a lava world and an ice world and a canyon world. It's like everything.
That's what they call it, Ice World.
But I'd had a lot of fun playing Alien Front Online and a lot of other like multiplayer action stuff on the Dreamcast, and I was really looking forward to this because I'm a big plane and dogfighting fan. And when they canceled this, while I understand why they canceled it, sort of.
Not really.
I feel like people could separate the two situations. I mean.
Yeah.
But like I was very unhappy that they canceled this because it looked like a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I think it still looks like a ton of fun if you watch it right now. I think
Airport.
Eagle
so
Jam.
Awesome.
I mean, it was 2001.
The Dreamcast,
we've come a long way from
Valley.
Red Valley and the Muscle Bros and the Pizza King. What? That's
This
an airplane called
trailer
Pizza
is
King.
Awesome.
Sky High. Pengo.
Really great. I love it.
So yeah, this would be when I think of canceled games that I wish I'd gotten to play. Propeller Arena is definitely one of them.
So Matt, I was surprised by this because there's this other little game floating out there called Star Wars 1313 that I figured might be one of your picks.
Maybe it's my next pick.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
1313. First off, I don't think 1313 is totally dead. I think a lot of concepts from it are going to be reincorporated into Amy Hennig's Star Wars game.
Good.
And B, I don't give a shit about Boba Fett.
Really?
So,
he was always my favorite Star Wars character.
Why?
Because he was like.
Because he looks cool.
Because he was silent. He was an assassin, and he looked
wasn't.
cool.
He was a bounty hunter.
He had to me, when I'm a kid, he was an assassin, and he had the coolest ship in the whole universe. Like. A lot of people like Boba Fett, man.
I know a lot of people like Boba Fett, but it's
my whole circle of friends. We were like Boba Fett worshippers. Like
the Boba Fett thing, in part, comes from the fact that he was the first figure you could get from Empire Strikes Back. You could send in your proofs of purchase and get him through the mail.
Everybody had that.
And everybody had him, and everybody would you'd stand around in the schoolyard and be like, "What is he? Like, what does he do? Like, who is he?" Like, no one knew. Everyone was all this speculation. He came out. He was a dude in a cool set of armor that did nothing. He does nothing.
He had a pretty pivotal role, though.
He has a pivotal role, but he does nothing. He stands around. He says, people
That's why I liked him, though. He was a man of few words. He was a badass.
He does nothing.
You can argue that all you want. The bottom line is a lot of people
stands around.
love Boba Fett.
The other thing that people thought he was cool for, which I will admit is valid, is he talked back to Darth Vader. He's the only character who talks back to Darth Vader. Everybody wanted to know why. And then there's the whole thing where he points his gun at Chewie and Vader pushes it down. Yeah. And you're like, what's going on between those guys?
Yeah.
And it turned out that there was originally an idea that that Boba Fett was going to be Vader's brother. That they were related, so that's how they knew each other. And then in the Return of the Jedi, he stands around again, and then he rockets across a gap to point a gun at a guy with a sword that he could have just pointed from up there, and then he gets hit by a blind man and screams like a girl and falls into a pit.
This sounds personal for you, Matt.
Because
sounds like you're upset that people like him so much.
Because it's dumb. Well, it wasn't the liking Boba Fett at the time so much as how like the expanded universe took him. It's like, oh, then he got out of the pit, and then he teamed up with all the other bounty hunters from Empire Strikes Back, and then they flew around the galaxy and failed at various other things. It's dumb. I don't understand the obsession with Boba Fett.
Well, I totally understand why you don't care about
he's
Star Wars
He's a super cool
13.
character design who never lived up to his character design, and if you'd like to see the second example of that, we're currently living through Captain Phasma, who's also an awesome character design who did nothing in her movie.
Okay, I'm going to move on to my first pick. My first pick is BC, Peter Molyneux's open-world prehistoric dinosaur game, the game I wish Far Cry Primal was.
Ouch.
Yeah. Even when I was playing Primal for the game eval, I was hoping at some point, like, some crazy Far Cry thing would happen, and you get transported in time, or you discover this lost enclave of dinosaurs. Like,
no game that invents its own caveman language is ever going to give you that.
Yeah.
It was like they put too much research into this to bring in the dinosaurs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Far Cry typically has like these crazy like sci-fi things that happen. Like it wouldn't be that far-fetched. It's not like it's all grounded in reality or anything. Like, they do take some liberties with reality in those games. So, Peter Molyneux, open-world game. I've typically liked his games, even though they've fallen short of a lot of people's expectations. Like, I've enjoyed them. I've also liked the comedy in a lot of his games. And I feel like...
a hell of a run cycle those guys got.
Look at that run animation. This was an Xbox One game, like the very first Xbox. Was pretty far into development before it was ever canned. There's footage. There's like literally like an hour of gameplay footage that you can find if you really dig around for it. I was really excited for this game. It was promoted pretty heavily. It was talked about him several times. And, back then there weren't a lot of open world games, period.
No.
I mean, you had, like, Grand Theft Auto and a couple weird, like, attempts at it, like Headhunter and stuff like that. So,
like Outland.
Yeah, I mean, this could have been, like, a paradigm-shifting game. I've always been fascinated with dinosaurs. Like, I almost, as a kid, I wanted to become a zoologist because I was obsessed with dinosaurs. I just love that whole era of the planet's history. I was just really excited for it, and it just never happened. I'm still not sure why it was ever canceled, to be honest. Like,
as I understand it, basically it came down to they could afford to finish this game or Fable, and they picked Fable.
No, maybe that was not a smart decision.
No, Fable did pretty damn well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it did.
I mean, the fact that to this day, last week, we're talking about how the last Fable game got canceled.
Yeah.
Would we have been talking about, the 6th BC game being canceled last week?
It could have.
Maybe. But, it's at a certain point, you run out of years and the dinosaurs are extinct.
Well, I would also see something like this game, like, evolving over time, where it goes, like, to the next stage to where it does maybe end up turning into, like, a Far Cry Primal, where you're near that stage where where the humans are a little more intelligent, or Neanderthals or whatever. So, that's my first pick. What's your second pick, Matt?
My second pick is Legacy of Kain, Dead Son.
And I have to admit, I had not even heard of this game.
Most people hadn't, but it was actually dug up by a NeoGAF poster named Mama Robotnik, I believe, who used to. He's very obsessed with Legacy of Kain, and would periodically dig up like these crazy research things he did, and he dug up all this stuff on this game that almost nobody had heard of, and it was a kind of a Zelda style, kind of Soul Reaver style Legacy of Kain game that also had a multiplayer component. And when it got canceled, the multiplayer component was salvaged and turned into a game called Nosgoth, which I don't think exists anymore, but was kind of a...
It got canceled too?
Yeah, it was like a sort of a free-to-play, but it actually did come out and was available to play for a while. But I am a huge Legacy of Kain fan. From the first game on, Soul Reaver was great. I love that property and that story and those characters, and I would love to see it come back. And so
that was one of those games I was talking about earlier on the original PlayStation, where I was playing it and I was like, I love this game, but it could be so much better on another platform.
Very Victus. And Simon Templeman, great voice actor, really has only done that character for the most part. But I really want more Legacy of Kain, and when I found out about this, never happening, it retroactively, destroyed me. Because, no one even knew. I don't think anyone really knew.
That's odd. You didn't know it existed.
I didn't know it existed, but now I do know it existed, and that bothers me, and I wish part of me wishes Mama Robotnik had never found out, and part of me, is glad that we do know.
Yeah.
Because it looked pretty cool in some places. But that would be my pick, just because I so desperately want Legacy of Kain to come back, and I don't think it ever will. And if it did,
You don't think it ever will?
I don't think it ever will. And if it does come back, I won't even like it very much because it's not written by Amy Hennig anymore.
Well, she's not dead yet, Matt.
Well, no, but I don't think she's going to go back to Crystal Dynamics and write them a Legacy of Kain.
Crystal Dynamics may not even be the ones who make the game ultimately. Like, you never know. I'm sure they do, but they could farm it out to somebody else or whatever.
But so Soul Reaver is kind of where Amy Hennig started, and then she moved on to Naughty Dog and Uncharted. But I think Soul Reaver 2, while I don't think it's actually a very good game, Soul Reaver 2 is literally you run along a path for like hours and see cutscenes, and then you get to the end of that path, and then you turn around and run all the way back to the start. It's literally what it is.
That game, I didn't actually like that game.
So the game of that, but I think it's one of the best scripts ever in a game. Like, there's some great scenes in that game if you can slog your way through the gameplay.
Yeah, that's a tall order, though, I think.
It is. I thought about replaying it at one point, and then I ended up just watching this cutscenes on YouTube.
There you go.
But
cut out the middleman.
But I would love to see Legacy of Kain come back, because I think it's a cool world they have there. But sometimes it's better to let those things lie. But this game looked like it had promise, and it makes me very sad it never happened.
Okay, and my last pick is Dead Phoenix for GameCube. So Dead Phoenix, do you remember Dead Phoenix?
Oh yeah, it was one of the Capcom 6.
5. Yep. One of the Capcom 5. Nintendo signed a big exclusive deal with Capcom back during the GameCube era for 5 games. I don't know how that ended up working out financially. I don't know if Capcom had to give them some of the money back, but this was one of them.
Well, they made another like Beautiful Joe or something for him, I think. They ended up having more than 5, or maybe at least 5.
Well, what they ended up doing was like re-releasing some of the old Resident Evil games on GameCube, and I think they tried to attribute some of those towards the 5-game deal.
Well, the remake worked out pretty well for them.
Oh, sure, the remake did great. Resident Evil 4 was part of the Capcom 5.
Yep. And
they did
Beautiful
2,
Joe,
and Beautiful Joe, and then remakes of the older ones.
Piano
3. Yeah.
The ass shaking game.
That game was pretty awful. Pretty to look at, but pretty awful.
Yeah.
But so anyway, let's talk about this game though. The most unique game I've seen from Capcom. Still, I haven't seen a game this unique from Capcom in a long time.
Yeah, believed it at the time. I think it's kind of a Legendary Wings spiritual successor, if you remember that old arcade game.
It actually gives me a little bit of a Lair vibe. Remember Lair from Factor 5
the game
for
that
PlayStation
killed Factor
3?
5?
Yeah, the game that killed Factor 5. It does remind me of that a little bit, but it also has like a little taste of like Monster Hunter in it. There's like lots of big battles with massive creatures, and obviously, you can free fly. It's like an open world type of game where you can fly wherever you want. You're basically playing as like Icarus.
Yeah.
There was lots of talk for a while that it was, canceled so it could be turned into a Kid Icarus game. That never happened. I think Matt Casamassina from IGN reported that it was going to become a Kid Icarus game.
Yeah, well, what didn't he report?
I was of all the Capcom 5, like even more than like the Resident Evil games, because at that point I didn't know Resident Evil 4 was going to be so freaking awesome. I was just like, oh, another Resident Evil game or this? Like I would at that point I would have much rather have played Dead Phoenix. And what made it even more grueling was that like they never really said that they canceled it. Like Capcom, Capcom never put out a press release and said it's been canceled or we're moving it on. Nothing. Like it just lingered there forever, which was provided fodder for people like Casamassina to like feed into the whole thing and say, oh, it's being reworked for Kid Icarus or whatever, which
I think has been proven to be completely false.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was proven to be completely false, but yeah. So I will always dream of being able to play this game.
Yeah. To me, this always seemed like, oh, this is like what Panzer Dragoon would have evolved into if they kept making him. Which is a shame.
Well, you can also see he transforms into like a huge frickin' phoenix.
Yeah,
like he's still thinking about this game. Like, so you transform into this huge phoenix, then what do you do? Do you go fight other massive creatures?
Judging by the title, you die.
Yeah. I still think it looks flipping awesome. Like, if I heard that they had started working on this game again for NX or PlayStation 4 or Xbox One or VR, like, I would be crazy pumped. Like, I'd rather have this for an NX exclusive than Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Well, let's not get crazy.
I'm not being crazy. I would be more excited for this game than to play Beyond Good and Evil 2. That's my opinion. That's why I was devastated when I found out that this game was canceled. It's unique. I've never seen another game like it, unless you count Kid Icarus. But look, he also has like that massive like hand claw thing. Like, I just think the game looks flippin' awesome. I still think it looks awesome. And I was devastated when I found out that. I didn't even really find out. Like, it was just this slow death where I just lost every little glimmer of hope slowly over time until I had none left.
Yeah, it was annoying how that game just sort of faded. That was also true of a lot of like GameCube era stuff where it's like you hit a point where it's like, well, what happened to this game? And they're like, oh, it's look over there. You know, it's like no one would give any definitive answers as to what happened to any of these games they showed and then disappeared.
Well, my third pick, my follow-up, would have been Mario 128, another GameCube game. And, that game, they say that elements of it ended up going into Super Mario Sunshine. I don't see any elements of Mario 128 in Super Mario Sunshine.
No, not really. I figured Mario 128 basically became Pikmin.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I assumed as well. But, yeah, they're saying that it was, like, incorporated somehow into Super Mario Sunshine, which I just don't see. But
it seems like that kind of became, like, it like maybe the concepts behind that sort of became Pikmin and, like, the Mini Mario games on the DS. There's a lot of stuff. It was also that, I'm never going to remember the name of it, but it was, like, Factor 5 had another like kind of hack and slash guys in armor and sword game that I guess was like that they showed a couple times.
Oh. Oh yeah.
And I can't remember the name of it at all, but like because it was shown like it might have been the same year as the Capcom 5.
I can't remember either.
And that got killed.
Anyone in chat know what we're talking about?
Someone in chat will know what it is.
They can Google it.
No, they'll know. I'm sure someone knows off the top of their head, but like, because someone out there, that game is the game they'd pick for this segment. Yeah. So it's gonna be. It was just like this weird limbo area where like all these games that were supposed to be for this system that all of a sudden had a much shorter lifespan or shorter viable.
When they realized it was only going to sell 20 million units.
They're like, they're just going to slowly back away from this one, and we're just not going to admit that we're. It's funny because like that was when nobody wanted to admit they didn't want to support Nintendo anymore because it was the financial hit they were going to take. Yeah. And now it's just like, we're not making anything for that stupid system. It's
because they had the little mini discs and they couldn't fit all their FMV on it. And if they did, it was all compressed and janky.
But back then it was still not backing off of a deal with Nintendo was like betraying the 800-pound gorilla. People had not adjusted to the idea that Nintendo wouldn't be on top forever.
Now they're just like, whatever.
Like. It does what?
Yeah.
It's another. That's nice.
Yeah, have fun with that.
So I wonder how they're doing getting like third party interest on the NX.
I don't know. We should find out pretty soon. I mean,
I guess so.
Only got a couple months to go. They're gonna have to show something there. So that's our picks for games we were devastated when we found out that they were canceled. Throw some of yours in the chat on Twitch or in the comments. I'm sure other people will be bringing up games that I'm like, oh yeah, that one hurt too. But those were the two games that I was really, really hyped for.
Yeah, the other one
never delivered.
One I might have picked, although again, I don't know if there's any proof this game even existed. But the other one would be Metroid Dread.
Yeah, that was another one. I think that may have been another Casa Messina fabrication.
Could have been. Yeah, there was a period where IGN was a very fanciful place.
Yeah. I visited it every day though back then.
Because you never knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. IGN 64 was awesome. I mean, honestly, IGN 64 is what got me into this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like, it was really the first, like, modern-day video game website.
Yeah.
They had personalities that you cared about. It was him and, like...
And they assign people to... assigning people to each platform was a good move because on one hand, everyone, the bias. It's like, yeah, but it also fostered, like, kind of... The IGN guys all kind of had their...
They had a beat.
And they kind of took sides. Yeah. And I can only imagine if
it wasn't even about the sides. It's because when you just worked on that one beat, like
you got really deep into
it. He knew all the people who worked on Nintendo games, and so he could break stories. But
the only thing is, like, you wish you could go back in time and like do a podcast with them.
Yeah, like for sure.
Guys, just getting into what are these?
Well, Matt works at like Apple now, and, like software or whatever.
But I'm just saying, like, we take all our equipment back in time to like 2000. And like set up the IGN guys and have them all yell at each other. I think
people are saying Silent Hills. That's a good one. Mm-hmm. 8 Days. Remember that one?
I remember 8 Days. Oh, the
Crossing. Is that a Criterion game? 8 Days. I know it was made in.
I don't remember who that was.
I know it was made in Europe, but I can't remember who made it.
The Crossing. That's a good call. Crossing was Valve was publishing, but it was made by the people who did Left 4 Dead, maybe. I don't know what it was. It was a shooter, but other people played all the enemies. Like, you never fought against an AI. You played like a single player shooter, but the game world, the enemies you fought were populated by other players playing in the multiplayer mode. So like it was you were always fighting against like other players who had much less life than you, obviously. But it was basically like the idea was you would never fight against an AI. And then and periodically the single player game was supposed to cross over into big firefights that were actually multiplayer matches of the game.
Yeah.
So it was that's a good pick. That was a cool idea that never came back again.
I'm also seeing Silent Hills.
Yeah.
I wasn't all that excited for it. I was not like a big fan of the PT demo. Like, I don't. Yeah, but I still can't understand. Isn't what. Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, right. That wasn't even what the game was going to be.
No, it was just going to be another Silent Hill game.
Yeah. And look, the last couple Silent Hill games were not good.
I can't remember the last Silent Hill game I liked.
And I get Kojima was working on it, but he also worked on like the last Castlevania game, and that wasn't really all that good either. So,
but
look, I'm saying Dead Phoenix has no proven track record whatsoever. So
no way to know.
I just really like the concept of it. So,
Prey 2 is a good.
Yeah, there's lots of them. So.
Project Huxley. Wow. Remember Huxley?
I thought that's still being worked on.
I thought that did come out for PC in some form, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it did too.
Like a free-to-play thing or something.
Maybe. It was at a lot of trade shows.
Yeah, I just remember that was like the first next-gen footage we saw for the 360 and PS3, and I was like, no way! There's no way a game could ever look that good. And then Sony's press conference happened, and we're like, ooh.
I can't wait to see the comments on this episode on the archive, because I'm sure people will start coming up with all kinds of crazy good ones. So we do need to move on, though. Next, we're going to talk about Gears of War 4. I haven't played it. Matt hasn't played it. But Gears of War 4 is Game Informer's cover story for this month. And it has been rolling out exclusive coverage of this game for the last week. Like every day, pretty much, like a new piece of content.
Pushing it hard.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of new information floating out there about this game. Matt, what are your impressions?
My impressions is they're going to need to show me something more interesting before I spend $60 on this thing.
Yeah.
I'm
not encouraged by these previews from Game Informer.
Not really, no. I am not invested enough in the world of Gears of War beyond the look. I love the look of the Gears of War world, but I'm not invested in the story of Gears of War enough to care what happens to Marcus Phoenix's child.
Yeah.
And 25 years later, and
Yeah, to set it up, 25 years after Gears of War 3, humanity is trying to rebuild after the crazy war with the Locust. One of the 3 playable characters is the son of Marcus Phoenix. He's like the blonde
guy.
Faux hawk guy.
Who apparently did not take his dad's steroid regimen.
Yeah.
People are much smaller now.
I think that might be my biggest issue with this game, is it just doesn't look like Gears of War in any way, shape, or form.
I do wonder if that's intentional, though, because if you were in the...
It is 25 years later.
25 years later, and you're no longer in a ongoing extinction event war for survival. I mean, who knows what they're pumping into these guys to make them the best soldiers they could be.
That's true.
And now maybe they don't have to do
that. Maybe there is
a
story behind it all, but it still doesn't look like Gears of War.
It doesn't look like Gears of War. It looks more almost like a horror game.
It looks like Resident Evil is what it looks like.
Yeah. They've got new enemies. They've got this thing that kind of looks like the Locusts, but they're different. And then there's this...
I'm sure it'll be in the story. It'll be they evolved.
The giant dog thing that shows up at the end of this demo you're looking at right here that was at E3 last year that was just...
The only exciting part of the demo.
Yeah, otherwise it was just people walking through dark areas. It was a very odd thing to show off.
I mean, look, it is a pretty game. Even though this is really dark and you can't see much, you can tell the game technically is probably the best-looking Xbox One game.
And frankly, there's some screenshots they've released that if those are not bull shots, that is
pretty amazing.
They're making a run for best-looking game on the consoles right now.
Yeah. What would you say right now is the best-looking Xbox One game? Forza?
Maybe, kind of. Forza 6 looks really good, but if you want to it's hard to...
Tomb Raider, maybe?
maybe. I still think Rise looked really good.
Yeah.
I mean, Rise is beautiful.
It is. It's not a very fun game to play.
No, I'm not saying it's a good game. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's really pretty. That was a launch game, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like Forza 6 is probably the best looking just in terms of like visual fidelity.
Technically,
and it
yeah.
runs smooth. It's a 60 frames per second and everything. But like, I don't know. I always feel like car games are kind of cheating.
It is.
You know,
Yeah, it is
it's like
cheating.
it's just
Because you always know which direction everyone's going to be going.
right.
and-
Whereas like car games used to be the metric. It was
Right.
always like, oh, what's the big racer on the N64? What does the pop-in look like?
Right,
What's the drawing?
yeah. What's the draw distance?
Yeah, that was where you like made your
Pop-in.
If Digital Foundry had been around in 1996, they'd have been comparing like
Field
Cruising
Day.
USA and Gran Turismo 2, and that would be
I mean, look, the crazy part is we still get pop-in, draw-in.
Yeah.
Like, after all this
Yeah.
time, because they just want to push the hardware as much as they can, so we still have it.
it's better than it was. But
Yeah. So let's go back and talk about Gears 4 a little more. So a lot of the weapons are built around like construction tools because humans are trying to rebuild civilization essentially.
Yeah, there's not really any war anymore.
Right. Well, until now.
Well, right.
But yeah, a lot of their weapons are made out of like construction like items. Like there's one gun that I think this is cool that shoots saw blades. And once you shoot the saw blades out, they actually ricochet around. And they said that you can like take out a whole room of enemies with one saw blade. But you have to watch because you can also be damaged by the saw blade. So it just starts going crazy in the environment, but ultimately like it could take you out too. I thought that was a pretty cool idea for a weapon.
That's gonna be fun in co-op.
Yep, they have a tweaked Lancer. They said they still have the chainsaw bayonet, which they'll always have to have in a Gears game.
Well, you gotta cut trees down.
Right.
So
Yeah, I guess it fits in with the whole construction
Yeah.
theme.
be kind of cool if like you find one early on and like the chainsaw still works, but the gun part doesn't. And you have to like fix it somehow because like somebody like maintained the chainsaw part, but they didn't like keep oiling the gun part, so you have to like. But I mean,
They're saying no co-op.
no co-op.
Nope.
That's unfortunate.
That's really odd because they've had it since Gears 2.
Yeah, it kind of has defined the series
Yeah.
to some degree.
They said there will be horde mode.
Yeah, well, they said they know that what modes are important to people.
Yeah.
So that probably means horde mode with coming back.
Well, I think when they did the interview, and then he goes, people like horde mode, and then he goes, yeah, we know what modes are
Yeah.
important to people. So basically he said yes. We're gonna
yes
have horde
without
mode.
saying yes.
Right.
A lot of emphasis has been placed on making more effort to make a balanced multiplayer experience, and esports has been mentioned a lot. Rod Ferguson talked about how at Epic they didn't really care about the pro gamers so much. They just sort of let them decide, well, we're going to focus on the mass audience consumer and sort of let the pro gamers do whatever they want to do with it. Whereas now they're for this one they're going to focus on trying to make it a balanced and competitive pro gamer experience.
Well, Xbox
Which
is
is a
also
pretty
working
big shift.
with the ESL to organically integrate like tournaments and ladders into Xbox Live. So, yeah, I think that push for esports is going to be something from every first-party Microsoft game going forward.
Yeah.
If there continue to be first-party Microsoft games going forward.
Here's a question for you from the Microsoft for this game and other Microsoft exclusives this year. You think we're going to stick with that card system?
What do you mean card system?
You know how like Forza had all the cards you could collect, and, and
for sure.
Halo 5 had the cards you could collect, and
it's money, dude.
Yeah.
They made, I think, the last time I saw they raised
Tomb Raider has the cards.
But I think they made like $2 million off the cards in Halo 5 that they didn't then put into the pot for the esports tournament. You make that kind of money off of cards, you're going to put the cards in the game.
So Gears 4 really seems like it's kind of for all the marbles at this point for Xbox One. I mean, you've also got Forza, maybe Crackdown.
Yeah.
We have no release date or even
Well, they
window
said
for that.
Crackdown this summer multiplayer.
Yeah.
Why they released multiplayer before anything else, I have no idea.
But a lot of eggs in the Gears basket here.
Yeah. Coming out Q4. They just said Q4. They didn't say whether it's closer to holiday or closer to like October. But
my guess would be early November, somewhere not the week Call of Duty comes out.
Hype level for this game's really low for Gears
Seems
of War
like
4.
it. They need to show something at E3 that's really going to energize the crowd.
I'm surprised after the response of what they originally showed that they have waited and not shown something else.
Well, what good?
Because
would have been done, really?
even with this huge exclusive that they worked on with Game Informer, they did not give Game Informer a lick of new footage. None. Yeah. No new gameplay.
Well,
I
feel like they've got an uphill battle because, like, there were 3 Gears of War games that were solid and people enjoyed them, but I always forget that 4th one exists.
Yeah.
Was it
Judgment?
Judgment. See, I almost called it Ascension because sometimes I confuse it with a God of War game.
God of
I forget
War,
exists.
Gears of War. Yeah.
But God of War and Gears of War both had that 4th installment that no one.
Yeah.
That 4th installment that was a prequel that no one really asked for.
Yeah.
And seemed more like filler.
That might have killed Gears.
It maybe. And also, like, as much as people make fun of the big dude bro, like, steroid musclehead weirdo thing, like, that was kind of iconic.
I liked it.
To that. I mean,
it was endearing, I thought, in a weird kind of way.
They're going to have to work real hard to sell this as Gears, I think.
Well, the characters just don't have as much charisma now. They just seem like these just generic people. Like, the girl is, like, new to the whole... She's not even a cog. Like, she just kind of stumbles into the whole, like, thing and is, like, comes from some other place. And so she's, like, the noob who everybody else has to teach how to be a cog. I don't know. I mean, look, again, we haven't seen much of the game. We've only really seen this demo. Limited conversation between the characters. So, obviously, character development, really minimal at this point. Mm-hmm. But going back to what I was saying, like, after the negative reactions to this demo, like, I just can't understand why they have not released another piece of video from this game, especially when they had the opportunity to do that with Game Informer. I mean, Game Informer gave them a cover that's going to go out to, like, millions of people, and they wouldn't give them new footage? Like, first of all, Game Informer needs to negotiate that. It needs to realize it has the cards and get that footage. But, Microsoft could have offered it and been like, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity for us to get this game out here again, now that people have kind of soured on it because of the demo. I mean, that demo was really poorly chosen.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're holding their cards for E3, and, maybe part of it was just like, maybe they didn't think it was going to make a splash compared to, they knew this was going to come out right around the same time as PlayStation VR probably was going to make some announcements, so maybe they just didn't want to compete with it. Because that's where you're really going to run into a strange situation, because the other thing about this game is it's coming out in the same year as an Uncharted,
which
provides a very similar experience, especially with the heavier emphasis on multiplayer in Uncharted.
But they're both platform exclusives, so...
For sure, but like if you're a new consumer and you're trying to pick between the platforms this fall, you're looking at this versus Uncharted. What are you going to pick? They're both about equal visually. I think you're not really going to look at one and say, oh, that looks way better than the other. For the most part. So which one's going to appeal the most? Which one are you going to watch video of and be like, oh, wow, that one looks really cool? Because so far, every video Uncharted's released looks really cool and makes you go, oh, wow. Yeah. And this one, not so much. So
they're actually kind of similar games. I mean, one's a horror game,
the cover-based shooter thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because, I know they're emphasizing the horror kind of, a slower-paced Gears style here, but, like, really... When the action throws down, you're still ducking behind a waist-high wall and popping out to shoot something.
Well, I read the chat log from last week's show on Twitch, and I had mentioned that playing The Division, it reminded me a lot of Uncharted. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple people that were like, "What? Are you insane?" And like the more that I played The Division, the more I agree that it reminds me of Uncharted. It's like, see all these guys running in, they take their positions behind cover, and it just turns into this exercise. Pop up, shoot. Pop up, shoot. This guy's running around, go to the next cover. Pop up, shoot.
It's definitely a very similar skill set.
Yeah. It feels very much the same, the combat.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm level 30 now, and, pretty close to 100% done on that game. We've done a lot of Dark Zone.
Yeah.
And, I am continually reminded of Uncharted.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way. I don't mean that as an insult to The Division at all. I love Uncharted. But, it's definitely the same skill set, especially using the PS4 controller. It's like, it's a good warm-up for Uncharted.
It is, yeah.
I'll be ready.
Yeah. So, look, the object of any publisher in doing a cover story with a magazine like Game Informer is to increase hype and anticipation for the game.
But
was that mission accomplished for you, Matt?
Not at all. Like, everything I read about this game felt expected.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it that made me go, oh, that's a cool idea. And like their whole thing is, like the big thing is like, I guess there's like the big windstorms on the planet now. And so like there's going to be like wind bursts or like that.
Do I want that?
Really?
I really don't want that.
Because you know what I just played that had that in it? Twilight Princess.
Yeah.
In the first dungeon.
Yeah.
Which, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, and that was kind of the thing that I thought was like, who pitched that in like a meeting, and everyone thought that was like a really cool.
Well, I think
thing
the
to
coalition
incorporate.
at this point is just trying to not screw it up because it's like their first Gears game, and like you go too far out of bounds, and it's your new developer, it's your first time making a game. If you stray too far away from the formula, then people are going to sort of rake you over the coals for it. Look, I kind of get why they're playing it safe, but I agree with you that they need to not play it safe with this game because that was what happened to Gears of War, is that it was played safe for like 4 entries. It never really evolved much beyond the first game.
And it never really had, I don't know, I still feel like the first Gears of War had a point of view. Yeah. And the others really didn't. Yeah. The others were just sort of continuing the motion.
Yeah.
And, like, hopefully Gears 4 has some new angle, some new point of view on this world, these characters, this type of gameplay, anything. And I don't see that yet.
Yeah, I don't either.
And even the new weapons seem to be sort of new ways to incorporate the old gameplay elements with, like, it's like construction yellow now. You know? Like the thing, like the one weapon that like it's like the kind of like the drill bore gun where you shoot the thing and like when you let go of the trigger, the thing drops and digs into whatever it's down on and it blows up. Like that's a really cool idea, but it's like you've already kind of used stuff like that in Gears 3.
Yeah.
So like to me when you're saying like it's 25 years later and everything's a construction weapon now, like except some of the construction weapons seem to just be like reskins of military weapons that we used in the old one. So it's like if you really wanted to commit to that concept, you've got to create some new things. And
it's hard to top the Hammer of Dawn.
True. I mean, the saw blade thing is really cool.
Yeah.
But that's one thing so far,
is,
and it's also something that I did in Mega Man 2.
Yeah.
So
right. You're absolutely right.
That's the thing. I know there's nothing new under the sun, but so far Gears of War 4 is not kind of showing me anything that makes me think like, this is something I have to experience.
All right, it's time to move on to the next topic. So what inspired this topic was me discovering that new gun in Gears of War 4 that shoots the saw blades. I was like, that's a really cool weapon, and I was like, maybe we should do a topic about our favorite weapons in games. So we've both chosen 2 of our favorite weapons from any video game ever. Matt, you're up first. What's your first pick?
My first pick is the first time I've ever picked anything, and you've questioned me on it.
Yep.
My pick is the Master Sword from the Zelda series.
I was shocked to see this. I think my exact text to you was,
It's just a sword.
A sword.
And it is, but it's not just a sword. It's the Master Sword. So, but the reason I picked this is not necessarily because the Master Sword is like awesome to use, but because getting the Master Sword is like the greatest moment in every Zelda game. It's like that is
iconic moment.
It's the iconic moment. It's like the shit's about to go down thing. Everything gets real after you get the Master Sword. You can kill everything in like half the number of hits all of a sudden.
It's also something that you anticipate the whole time you're playing.
Like, how are you going to get the Master Sword?
You start looking for hints. And they'll start, in most games, there is this legendary sword. You're like, that's a Master Sword.
and there's just this satisfying element of like when you find, you've been using like the wooden sword or the
crappy steel
sword that you pick up at the beginning of the game, and then you finally get the Master Sword. The Master Sword's usually a little bit wider, usually a little longer. Sometimes it glows, and it looks so good with the Hylian shield. Yeah. And all of a sudden, like Link's in the green, and finally he just looks like Link. Finally. Yeah. So I picked that because like there's just something like ultra satisfying.
It's not so much about the actual weapon.
Yeah, it's not so much about you because it plays just like every other sword,
but payoff.
It's an iconic weapon that like I look forward to in every Zelda game, even the ones I don't like.
Yeah. So when I initially questioned that pick, I was like, wait, I think you're missing the topic, like what the whole target of the topic was. Once you explained it, I totally got it.
Yeah.
So I can understand. So I am also a fan of the Master Sword. I don't know how you can enjoy video games and not love the Master Sword. Unless you've never played a Zelda game and you don't get it.
Yeah, maybe if you don't have that attachment to that series.
The other thing, too, is what you did say, like, as soon as you get it, that's when you start to turn into a badass. Because in most Zelda games, you're, like, all meek and meager.
Right.
And you have these
And then you're like, I'm the hero of time, bitch!
Yeah, you have this crappy, like, wooden shield that, like... And when you, like, block, you get knocked back. And
the shield burns up, you gotta go buy another one.
Right. And once you get the Master Sword, like, that's when the tables start to turn. And typically, as long as they balance the game right, that's when you start taking it to the enemies instead of them kind of taking it to you. So
it's when you start to feel like, maybe I can take this Ganondorf dude.
Yeah. All All right, my first pick is the Cerebral Bore from Turok.
Nice.
And I have loved this weapon
There's a game Gears of War should steal.
Yeah, exactly.
A weapon Gears of War
should steal. I have loved this weapon ever since I played Turok 2 Seeds of Evil on the N64. A game, by the way, that had a bug that would keep you from completing it. And so, therefore, you had to return your cartridge to a store to get a replacement if you wanted to finish the game. Also, I might add, one of the most difficult games I believe I have ever played.
The save points were like hours apart.
Hours apart, yes.
These giant level, and like one guy could kill you.
Yep,
like,
one guy.
Boom.
Yep, it was one of the hardest games I ever played. And this, because it was so hard, like literally in this game, you are saving every arrow you've got.
Oh, yeah.
And when you use the arrow, you make sure you deliver a headshot with that arrow.
Kill him in one. And there's like, if there's guys like across like a chasm from you, like I ain't shooting them because I'm not getting my arrows back.
Never get my arrow back. Nope. And then they kill you, and you're like, I still ain't shooting him. So when you get this weapon, it is so satisfying and gratifying. Granted, they don't give you a ton of ammo to use with it, but you know, one, it's a homing shot. Two, it's a one-hit kill, and oh, what a gratifying kill it is. Mm-hmm. That crazy contraption seeks them out, attaches to their head, drills into the inside of their head, into their brain, and then explodes in their head.
Spitting like gray cerebral fluid the whole time. It's great.
It's crazy to think about this weapon. Like, in my opinion, probably still hasn't been topped in a first-person shooter. We have a mutual friend who came up with the idea for a weapon that I think could top it, which is a rocket launcher that shoots chainsaws.
Yes. That explode.
That I could maybe see beating the Cerebral Bore, but I've played pretty much every first-person shooter ever, and I've never found a weapon as satisfying and gratifying to use as this one. Again, a big part of it, too, was just how difficult the game was until you got it, and then once you get it, at least you have a brief reprieve where you know you can kill somebody.
We used to play, when they put multiplayer in this series, we used to play it the monkey tag variant.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Where one person would become a monkey,
yep,
and everyone else had to find the monkey. Whoever killed the monkey got the point for the monkey. And what would happen is, because it was same screen, so if it would be 4 people, 3 people, we would just run through like going. All 3 of us would be like monkey, 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 monkey.
Yeah,
monkey.
yeah.
We would all chant monkey, 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 and then when like we see the monkey, 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 and then if you were the hero of the night if you could get the Cerebral Bore on the monkey, because then the monkey would stand there and like wiggle on the thing, and everyone would run up and run around the monkey and go monkey, monkey, monkey. And it was the ultimate like finish him.
Yeah, I love that weapon.
It's a great weapon. It should come back. I'd love to see.
I'd
love to see it in modern HD graphics.
Oh my god!
I'd love to see a CryEngine version of
even
the
on
Cerebral
this
Bore.
crappy N64 graphics. It's mind-blowing.
It was,
like, I just said it's mind-blowing.
Nasty shit in that generation. In that like first 3D generation where like it was still kind of like almost like a Rorschach test once in a while. Like there was some nasty shit, especially in the N64 of all things.
Of all things. The kiddie console, as people called it.
Jet Force Gemini is one of the most gory things I've ever played. Just heads and limbs ripping apart everywhere. Oh yeah.
All right, Matt, what's your second pick?
My second pick is the Hidden Blade from Assassin's Creed.
That's a good choice.
Which I think has given us some of the greatest kill animations in game history. Really. I mean, there's some amazing stuff in that. And I love like the lore of it. Like in the original game, the whole thing was it popped out from your fist. It can't, the assassins had to cut their left ring finger off,
to make it
so
work.
there was a hole in their fist, so it would pop out,
and
they just punched the guy in the throat or whatever with it, which I thought was kind of awesome because that whole idea of like you had to mutilate yourself to commit yourself to this this order or whatever. I thought that was a cool idea. But still, even after you didn't have to do that anymore, Ezio wasn't into the mutilating because otherwise he wouldn't get the ladies.
Right.
It's still like this cool sort of almost steampunky kind of idea. Where
completely. It's like a machination that
it just sort of pops out and and I love that people try to make replicas of it and various things
Ubisoft made official.
Well, they made plastic ones, but you make a real one, you get arrested. I mean, it's so dangerous that there's cosplayers that make their own, but you have to research which states you'll be arrested if you try to take it into it. Like you can't order one and have it sent to California. It's illegal.
Really?
It's illegal to have something like that sent to California.
Wow.
As he said, totally not having researched that at all for his own purposes. But I just think it's really cool. I love that
It's unique. There's
unique.
no other game with it.
And in the early game, I don't think you can do this anymore because it's more of an automatic kill now because it's all context sensitive. But in the early game, especially I know the first game, you could fight with the hidden blade. Like you could just you could counter with it. You could stab people with, and that was that actually took some hard timing. And there's some really cool moves.
The several games let you do counter kills with it.
Yeah. Originally not. Apparently that was something that was added in because one of the animators just totally believed that you should be able to do that. So he did a bunch of animations for it. It's I thought it was it's iconic. It's iconic.
Also.
It's the emblem of the series in a lot of ways.
I would argue that is the most iconic weapon of the entire last generation of video games.
Yeah.
I can't think, when I think of last generation weapons, that is the weapon I think of.
Either that or the portal gun, if you want to call
If
you want to call that a weapon.
Or even call it that era.
Well, 2007.
Yeah.
Same year Assassin's Creed came out.
Yeah.
So.
But the portal gun isn't even really a weapon, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a weapon.
Yeah, it's more like a traversal tool.
So it's a tool. Yeah, it's a tool. I mean, it shows that when you think. I mean, it's just their job.
Yep.
Yes. It's
just another day at the office.
But no, I think that is certainly my pick these days for one of my favorite weapons. It's not as flashy as as maybe the gravity gun from Half-Life 2 or whatever, but
I see someone in chat here saying Bolivar is saying the iconic weapon of last gen is the M4A1 from Call of Duty.
That's a cynical pick, but a valid
the Garand?
one. Yeah.
I guess.
I mean,
it's just a rifle.
It is, but it's I think or if there was a gun that dominated people's choice of gun in the Call of Duty games, that would be a valid pick.
Yeah.
Just because that the games are so prevalent, I get where he's coming from on that. I like that. I like that as a cynical choice.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the AK-47 if you're going to go that route, though. I mean, more people use AK-47s. I mean, the Garand was just in one Call of Duty game out of many.
Well, 2.
The AK was in all of them, pretty much. Well, actually not, except for those 2.
Right. No AKs in the World War II ones.
Exactly, yeah. So, good pick. My last pick is another N64 game. The Far Sight from Perfect Dark.
I like that I picked melee weapons and you picked guns.
Yep, yeah. Well, I think that actually fits our personalities and our taste in games a little bit.
I'll kill you close.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
The reason I like the Far Sight is, one, again, when it came out, it was something completely unique. Now, maybe it doesn't seem like a big deal to be able to look through walls and see X-ray through walls, but I'm telling you, when this came out...
My God, how did we play this?
Oh, I know, it's insane, dude. How did we play this? It's so blurry and the frame rates are so bad. But I could just dominate with this gun. It lets you see through walls, so you can see where people are going and shoot through walls. And
it's a one-shot kill.
And it's a one-shot kill. Yeah. So you could just dominate with it, but also it's hard to use. So
I love that. Perfect Dark had the best reload.
Yeah, how it just puts that magazine that goes all the way through the gun. Where the hell does it go?
That work? Who cares?
It doesn't matter. But yeah, in multiplayer, if you were good with the Far Sight, you could just dominate people. But the thing is people would see you use it, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're cheating. You're using that gun." I'd be like, "Well, select it."
Yeah, you try it.
Yeah, and as soon as they just...
Because I can't use the Far Sight at all.
Exactly.
I'm terrible with it.
That's what I liked about it. It's if you actually practice with that gun, you could just become a literally, you would make people quit playing. You're cheating. I'm I'm not cheating. Here, you can choose the gun. Use the gun. See if you kill me. And I'll be like, I'll use a pistol. You use the Far Sight. And I kill him. Because it wasn't, games or weapons that are like that are one-shot kill or whatever, or that have crazy functionality like that, sure, they can be unbalanced if you make them easy to use. But this gun was really, because the other thing too is when you were scoped in an X-ray, you were completely vulnerable. Yeah. You were a sitting duck. So if anybody came across you while you're using the X-ray, they just would walk right up to you and shoot you. So
that's the thing with the Far Sight was it demanded a level of situational awareness that I simply didn't have in that game.
Yeah. And look, again, like, the technical performance of the game, I feel like made it even more difficult to use it. Because when the frame rates are bad and it's like chugging along and you got like
and what are you even looking at there? Like that's so hard to understand what you're seeing.
Exactly. But see, after you use it for a long time, you start to get used to it and you get it. And so, people think you're cheating. It's like, no, I've practiced with this thing for like a month to get this good with it. And so it's just an iconic weapon. It's one of the first weapons to ever have that kind of functionality in a first-person shooter. It was a total game changer as far as like, skills in the game. Like, you could always tell if somebody was really good at Perfect Dark if they used the far sight. And if they didn't, that means that they thought they were good, but they really weren't. So it was a difference maker in the multiplayer scene as far as playing the game against others. It definitely made you feel good when you were good at it, because people who really played the game, if they ran into you and they're like, you're good at a far sight, like, you're good at this game, like, it was kind of like a badge of honor. So that is my second pick for favorite weapon. And again, keep your picks coming. I want to see them. You guys are already sharing some in our Twitch chat. I want to see them on the comments, on the archive, on Sifted as well. So you could go on forever about iconic weapons. I mean, another favorite one of mine is a spin fuser from Tribes, because it's just like you have to be so good to use it. And it's like the default weapon that you use in Star Siege Tribes. It's just, all it is a disc that you fire, and when it lands, it explodes a radius about as big as this table. But like, what you learn to do is like, you learn to time it so when people are flying and they land, your disc has to land exactly when they hit the ground. Like, it's just the skill required to use that weapon is so intense that it's gratifying every time you get a kill with it. And like, if you can hit people in midair with the spin fuser, you're a god. Like, think about it. Like, you're flying with a jetpack, they're flying with a jetpack, you're flying like two different directions, height, like you got the whole XYZ axis going on. If you're good enough to like shoot a disc and hit that guy in midair, nothing felt better than that, man. Like, you literally felt like a first-person shooter god when you did that. Like, and that's a big part of weapons for me, is the gratification that you get from using them. Thus, my pick is for the far sight. There are other weapons that are more extravagant or more explosive, but a big part of it for me is like that feeling that you get when you're successful with it. So
I kind of wanted to pick a lightsaber, but I figured it was sort of cheating.
Yeah.
And B, I was like, well, he's going to make me pick a game in which I think it was done the best, and I don't think a lightsaber has ever been done properly.
No, I would agree with that.
I know everyone's going to say Jedi Outcast, but I hate that game, and I think it's too spastic.
Yeah, I don't think it was done well there either, though.
It's kind of like the best we had at the time, but no one has done a lightsaber properly yet.
I'd agree. All right, let's move on to the last topic of this week's GameFace. We're going to talk about Pokkén. I'm not sure exactly how I'm supposed to say it.
Bill Trinan said Pokkén.
Pokkén Tournament. Pokemon fighting game. I've been playing this, so I've been juggling this game with The Division over the last 3 or 4 days. I got this pretty early, and I was too excited to not play it, even though I was in the middle of trying to do my game eval for The Division. So I have put a couple days into this game. Matt, it is the weirdest fighting game I have ever played on so many levels. Like, I can't even explain it. Like, first of all, this game, like, it has, like, 2 modes of play. So there's, like, this mode that plays like a Pokemon RPG, where you have this camera that's like over the character's shoulder, and I think you pretty much start every match that way. And then once a certain play, and I still honestly cannot figure out what triggers the shift in perspective. I still haven't figured it out. I've played this game for several days. I still don't know what does it. But eventually, either you initiate an attack, or at a certain level, or you whittle them down. Like, eventually, it switches to the traditional like side fighting game. It's actually kind of cool, because I can see why they did this, because a lot of people are going to play this who've never played fighting games. And they love Pokemon. I love Pokemon, but I also love fighting games. But this is going to introduce a lot of people to a genre that they know nothing about, simply because they want to battle Pokemon. So basically, that view that you start out with kind of like ingratiates you to the game. Because it's literally like the view that you would play like a Pokemon RPG from. That over the shoulder, you see your trainer like really close up. and then in the distance you see the rival Pokemon. So I understand why they did it. I don't necessarily think it was a good idea. At least for fighting game purists, I don't think it was a good idea. It's really weird to have a game where you kind of jump back and forth from perspectives, particularly a fighting game. Particularly a fighting game that they're trying to get like an esports community to rally around. Like I've seen like some of the big Evo guys playing this game. So they're definitely doing their outreach and trying to get those guys on board to play the game to get people into it. But
you're going to run into a problem where you basically need your own console for each player.
Yeah,
and you have to network it somehow. Because it seems like it's very much designed around the arcade scene in Japan, which is everybody plays on their own machine, and they're kind of networked usually back to back or side to side. And because of that perspective switch, you basically need the Wii U controller as kind of your perspective. So it's like, so that's why when two people play, one person plays off the TV screen and one person plays off the Wii U controller. But then like when you come to like a tournament situation, well, how do you decide which player has to play on the tiny Wii U screen? Like that's not fair.
Yep.
So it's interesting that they decided to go with that if that was one of their goals. Because it's a cool trick, like in terms of kind of keeping continuity with the rest of the IP, but it seems like it might undermine what they're trying to do with it in terms of the genre.
It's a weird fighting game. Like, there's really no other way to put it. Like, the actual fighting commands for the moves are, like, very simple. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to do, like, crazy button combinations.
Well, it's like it's Tekken.
It is Tekken, essentially. I mean, there's lots of juggles in the game, like Tekken. Mm-hmm. There's, like, 2 meters. There's your burst meter, which is basically, like, your special. Once you fill that up, you can use it, and all you have to do is squeeze both triggers at the same time to pull that off. Although I found that I missed on mine more often than like I landed it. And once you do that, you're basically screwed because not only does it drain your burst meter all the way down, you're vulnerable for like a good 2 or 3 seconds. And then the other meter allows you to bring in support characters, which is one thing I really, really like about this game. So for starters, most of the characters in the game are not all that different. Like there's a couple that are like a little bit faster than the others. But they all kind of have, like, the same, like, each one has, like, a projectile or some form of a projectile. There's like, no, like, brawlers in the game. There's no, like, grapplers in the game. There's no, like, heavies in the game. Like, they all roughly kind of play the same. But for the few characters who do kind of have unique attributes, like, you can use your support characters to kind of nullify those. Like, there's one character that moves way faster than, like, any other character in the game. Well, you can bring in a support character, a support Pokemon, who will come in and basically freeze that character and slow that character down. So there's like a lot of strategy involved with using the support characters. And the other thing I like about the support characters is it actually gives you access to more Pokemon because there's only, by my count, like 16 Pokemon in this game. I mean, look, Street Fighter V launched with, I think, 16 fighters, so it's not that out of the ordinary, but
you're drawing from a pool of like 700
characters. When you're drawing from so many more characters, it's like it just seems like it's a big missed opportunity.
Well, I think they had to. It was like, do you put a whole bunch of fighters in here, or do you make sure it's a balanced game?
Yeah, but I also feel like if they had chosen their characters a little more wisely, that they probably would have had a greater variety. And that's what I would say is that like it feels like the game was developed to be safe, and I kind of get it because look, there's going to be a lot of kids playing this game. And so I think you're right. Like, I think that they were like, well, we need to balance this game. And if we start pulling in all these kind of crazy pocket monsters into the game, balancing it starts to get a little more complicated and a little more dicey. And I think that's why they kind of stuck with this core of characters who all kind of handle and control the same. One thing I would say is there is a ton of depth in this game once you start playing it. And the game does an amazing job of teaching you how to play it. Like, literally, it tells you everything. There's like these tips that pop up, like with voiceover, that on the fly, as the fight is happening, like tell you what to do. And you know, a lot of times when you get tips like that, it's like text. You're like, well, I can't read the text. I'm fighting. But so they've recorded voiceover for every one of these, so that it'll tell you why you're fighting. Like, use your burst right now, idiot. And like, and you can turn it off too. So like, the first like 2 hours I played the game, like I had the tips on, and like it really helped me learn and it dives deep. Mm-hmm. So for kids, like if kids are just learning how to play, I mean honestly, the single player in this, you can just button mash your way through like the whole thing. It's just like Street Fighter V. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you saw the video we curated the other day.
Baby.
The baby beating the. Like this game's like that too. Like you can button mash your way through the story mode, and the story mode's like a waste of time pretty much. Like, you fight like a handful of fighters, then you fight a boss that unlocks the boss. As you fight, there's like RPG elements in it where you can like level up your Pokemon like with new attributes and things like that. Of course, those only carry over to, you know, the single player stuff. You can't like take your leveled up, at least not that I've seen. You can't take like your leveled up Pokemon and then fight it online. I guess I've been pleasantly surprised by this game in a lot of ways, but also disappointed in it in a lot of ways. But one thing you can't deny is that it's not unique. Combos are easy to pull off. Most of them are just like hit the same button twice in a row, or maybe a couple of them, maybe actually you switch the buttons. But once you get digging down into it, into the depth of it, like it actually is like a really deep fighter as far as the mechanics are concerned. So,
well, you don't go for Namco for a shallow one.
Yeah, I haven't completely finished it yet. Like, I'm not ready to write the eval yet, but I did want to talk about it because the embargo was up a couple days ago. The game comes out on Friday, so I wanted to talk about it on the show while it was still kind of relevant and fresh in my mind, because I keep jumping back. But it's so weird. I keep jumping back and forth between this and like The Division, which is really a weird juxtaposition. But I've enjoyed it. Like, I read some of the reviews, and some of the reviews have been really harsh on this game, and I don't know why. Like, honestly, like I feel like they did about as good a job as they could making a Pokemon fighting game, because you have to create it for both kids who are going to want to battle it out with their favorite Pokemon if they're lucky enough to find it in the roster, but also people like us who just like to play fighting games and are looking for some depth. And it plays completely differently. It's not just like a Street Fighter clone or even really a Tekken clone. Like, other than like some of the juggle heavy stuff, you'd never guess that this was like built by the Tekken guys. Like, and look, the moves are flashy, like the graphics are great, like seeing some of these attacks like in full 3D at this fidelity is amazing. Like, you've always had to use your imagination with some of these for a long time, and being able to like see them in fully rendered HD, and the animation is great, the effects are awesome, like the camera does a good job of keeping up with the action despite some of the stuff going over the top. Like, there's this really cool like kind of color-coded system built into the game to kind of keep you on your toes even when like insanity is going on the screen. Like, a lot of thought, I guess is the best way to put it, is a lot of thought has gone into Pokkén whatever tournament. I thought it might just be a stupid cash-in. I was wrong. If you like Pokemon, you're going to love this game. The story part of it's pretty pointless. Like, you've been seeing it in the footage. The story doesn't really do much. The one thing I will say, though, is it does do a good job of like kind of educating people on Pokemon lore. I know it's silly, but like if you haven't played like a lot of the handheld RPGs, like it does a good job of catching you up to speed on like what a lot of the terminology means and what some of the relevance of the different Pokemon and things like that. I wouldn't call it quite a Pokedex or anything, but it does do a pretty good job for noobs to the franchise of kind of getting them in there and understanding what the hell's going on. So,
well, you got to wonder who the people who've never played Pokemon are who are buying this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a pretty good fighting game. Like, I've been pleasantly surprised by it. The other thing too is that like you collect like gear that you dress up your Pokemon trainer in, like your avatar or whatever. Kids will love that though. But yeah, overall, I've been pleasantly surprised, man. I've had a good time with it so far. I'm going to put a couple more days into it, play some matches online. As you know, since the game isn't out, it's kind of hard to get matches at certain times of day. Although I will say, it appears that Europe has broken street date on this game, because there's like lots of people with German like names that are playing it. Like there must be a store in Germany or a chain in Germany that just decided to start selling it or something. But yeah, so it's been hard to get games like the press. We've tried to organize sometimes to play each other, but it hasn't always worked out. But yeah, pleasantly surprised by Pokkén Tournament.
All right.
Yeah.
It's not entirely on my radar.
Yeah.
Just because
you're a big fighting game guy.
I'm a big fighting game guy, and I like Pokemon. I'm not a huge Tekken fan. And
yeah. Like I said, it doesn't really feel like Tekken.
Yeah, it's just like the same people, and I don't know if I...
You just don't want to support them?
I don't know if I trust it. Yeah. You know? It's not a support. I mean, I like Soul Blade, but like... Or Soul Calibur, but like, it's just like, I'm not a 3D fighter person so much unless it's Virtua Fighter.
This is definitely different, man. Like, because it has those two different perspectives, it feels unlike any fighting game I've ever played. The only other game I would say that maybe comes close is like Hybrid Heaven, as far as just being this off the wall, like weird fighting game.
It's just like one of those things. It's like $60. Big Pokemon beating each other. And
I can see that.
And it's not like there's going to be a point where like, oh, it's going to go down in price because Nintendo games don't.
It never will, yeah.
Although they did a sale in the last few days where like all of a sudden they cut the price of like Super Mario 3D Land U and the 3D World and Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. It was they're
doing selects now.
Yeah, cut down to $20 from $60 on Mario. So I'm like, I bought the shit out of that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess Nintendo's starting to whereas it's still like $60 in the stores.
Yeah.
So I guess Nintendo is starting to kind of wake up to the idea of competitive pricing in that regard. So I would buy it in a sale.
Maybe it bombs and they drop it.
I can't see this.
I don't think it's going to bomb though.
I think this is something Pokemon fans can really dig into.
And it's cool too. Like whenever you go to do like your bursts, like you like go into like you basically evolve. Your Pokemon evolves into its next form for the burst attack. And I don't know. I mean, look, I'm a big Pokemon fan. I definitely got some nice feels out of this game, I guess is the best way to put it. There's parts of it that are definitely made for kids, and you'll roll your eyes here and there at some things. But it's a very well-constructed game, a pretty robust game. Gameplay is well-balanced. I've been enjoying it a great deal. I don't know if I'd recommend it as a buy, though, because I finished the single-player stuff and unlocked all the characters in like a couple days. So if you don't have people to play against either locally or you don't like to play online or you can't play online, I would probably stay away from it, to be honest. Because, like a lot of fighting games, minus Mortal Kombat, the single-player content just isn't all that great, unless you really care about pimping out your avatar with like hats and clothes. Otherwise, there's not a lot of incentive to keep plugging along.
That's what I use the Division for.
Yeah, exactly. After you've unlocked all the fighters, it's like there's not a whole lot of incentive to keep playing it. So
it's any fighting game.
That's intrinsic to most fighting games. So again, like your mileage will vary. If you plan on playing online, you'll probably get a lot more mileage out of it. But I would not recommend this for a purchase unless you're a really hardcore Pokemon fan, because if you are, like, this game, like I said, will give you the feels here and there. Like, seeing some of these Pokemon do their thing, and at that level, if it is just, you've never seen it before. It's never happened before. Like,
how sad is that?
It is sad. Like, it's a total missed opportunity, but that's what you get in this game. Like, it's the best-looking Pokemon game ever.
Yeah.
That's something I can say without hyperbole. It's the best-looking Pokemon game ever made, even though it's not a mainline Pokemon RPG. So, yeah, those are my impressions. Look for the eval probably right around Friday, I'm guessing. I'm still working on the Division. That game is really big, the Division.
Yeah, we were...
Single player is not so big.
No, but there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
We were worried about, lack of content. That's not really a problem.
Well, lack of
variety. Sure.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of missions to do, whether you want to do them or not. It's a whole other story.
There's way more missions in the Division than you need to hit the level cap. So I hit the level cap and fully maxed out my base, and now I'm having a lot of trouble convincing myself to finish the rest of the non-story missions.
Oh, got you. I can see that.
Because I've got 2 districts left to collect everything and finish all the side missions in, and I'm like, why? I mean, you get templates for crafting, which is probably the whole point at this point. But I'm having a lot of trouble motivating myself. But again, I've played the game for 50 hours. I mean, I have not. It's not like I didn't enjoy it.
I made the mistake of trying to play the game all by myself.
Yeah, I played with a group, and it was.
There are certain bosses where you just will have to fight them 30 times to beat them by yourself.
I have finished all the single player missions on my own.
Really?
And in co-op. And they are most definitely easier in co-op.
Oh my god. I started playing with others, I just breezed through the whole game pretty much. And, fighting by myself, there was the one flamethrower boss, Kozalski or something?
I don't know. There was the Joe...
Kozarski or something. I fought him literally 30 times. And when I finally
comes out
beat
of the
him...
elevator?
No, No, it's way after that.
Oh.
He just comes out of a door, There's this big open room, and then there's like 2 escalators you can go up, and then there's an upstairs. And like you run forward, and there's like 3 guys that are just normal guys with flamethrowers. And then after you kill 2 of them, I know this whole thing by heart because I did it over and over. After you kill 2 of them, then the big boss comes out and you fight him. And like you shoot his tank, like he has 2 tanks. And I could shoot his 2 tanks before he ever get anywhere near me, and then it just turned into a total CF. Like just because they just constantly are spawning guys. Like I beat it by myself, and I was so glad when I finally did. And after that, I was like, I'm never playing another mission by myself. And I started playing with other people. I literally just waltzed through all the single-player content. It was like easy. So anyway, little tangent there. Well, like I said last week, we'll be talking about The Division for a long time to come. So, all right, it's time to go to our trailer of the week. As always, this is your opportunity to start asking questions. So make sure you get those into the chat while we're watching the trailer. In honor of the release date and price for PlayStation VR being announced, the trailer of the week is for PlayStation VR. So, Matt, this is a game called PlayStation VR Worlds. Interestingly enough, it is like PlayStation VR's version of Wii Play. It compiles all the early demos for PlayStation VR into one game, including the London Heist, which I was shocked. I was like, wait a minute, like, I thought London Heist was going to be PlayStation VR's like marquee game at launch. And as it turns out, it must be small enough that they're just going to bundle it in with these other sort of mini games. So we're going to toss to the trailer right now. It's got 5 different games. A few of them you've already seen before, but there are a couple new ones, including one that looks absolutely terrifying. Here we go.
A cracking a little piece of I don't give a monkey's what Frank thinks about you. I don't trust you. Keep your eyes peeled. You ain't clear yet.
So all you've got to do is walk in, get the diamond, and walk out again. Easy.
So yeah, kind of surprising to me to see London Heist in that compilation.
Yeah, you thought that was going to be a full game?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the one that they've been trotting out at like every event. It's like the one that you want to see. Like that luge game looks insane, man. I mean, look, they're hamming it up, and he's like, you know,
Whoa, yeah.
but still, that looks pretty scary.
Where do I get a magic ball of energy that gives me a $400 VR device? In my living room?
Exactly. I wonder too, like in that luge demo, like you notice how he went under the truck? Like he went like this. Like I wonder if you don't do that if you like die.
Oh, like if you have to keep your head down.
Yeah,
so
like
it
when
doesn't,
you go under
clip
cars.
the-
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. That could actually end up becoming like the best selling, like, or they should probably.
That's probably like that's going to be probably the Wii bowling of the PlayStation VR. The thing you tell your friend like, hey, try this. Like,
Yep, that's what you're going to put in your PlayStation VR whenever friends come over to try it for the first time. You're going to put in that collection of games and just let them check them out. You know, they'd probably be smart to pack that in, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean,
Definitely.
That's why the Wii sold like hotcakes, because they packed in Wii Sports.
Yeah. It would, and it also like.
And then after 2 years, they could do like Wii Sports and just make it for $20 for people who want to buy it if you don't want to keep packing it in.
And if you're spending that much money, you want something. You want to be able to know that you're going to have some cool stuff to mess around with, even if you don't buy a game with it.
Yep.
So yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
We'll see, but I think it's probably going to be successful no matter what. Anytime you have new technology, being able to put out like a tech demo for that technology ends up becoming popular. So, all right, let's see here. Some questions. Did you have one, Matt? Did you find one?
This is for Vidya Games. Asks thoughts on Sony not publishing Rime anymore.
Oh yeah, that's disconcerting. To me, that's really disconcerting. We were wondering. That's become
that game's been MIA for over a year.
It's become like one of our little pet projects on the show. Like we talk about it before every trade show. We're like, are we going to see it again? Are we going to see it again? And then to find out today that Sony basically dropped it and the developer has picked it back up for self-published, that is not a good sign at all. At all. Yeah, I was pretty disappointed to hear that today. I was like, no. Yeah, I don't think there's any way you could say that that's a good thing.
No.
Unless Sony was holding the project back and now it'll come out faster, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. Like if Sony wanted a certain thing out of that game and the developers weren't trying to go in that direction, it was just like a creative differences thing, maybe. But
yeah. But typically...
Typically when the publisher walks away from you, it's not a good sign.
Yeah, it's usually not a good thing. So...
Especially with Sony being, kind of the major publisher that's willing to do anything. And this, like they'll take risks on these games, and it makes me wonder why they didn't think it was worth taking this one.
Yeah, I mean it's an indie game too. It's not like it's a huge risk. Like no matter how you stack it up, it's not looking good for Rime. That's what I would say. I also say it's probably not going to come out anytime soon either. Oh man, there's a ton. Let's see from Neofant. How do you feel about Microsoft announcing cross-platform play? We kind of talked about that in the show open, actually. Here's one from Ahab. Why do you think Nintendo hasn't made a proper HD Pokemon game? Is it because Nintendo is just weird? Or is it the same reason IT guys don't hurry to get stuff done? Because if they do it once, people will expect them to do it again.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, man. That's funny. No, I don't think that's what it is at all. I mean, we actually had this conversation in comments for one of the episodes. I think it maybe even was last week. Someone was saying that people just expect Pokemon to be on the handhelds. That's Nintendo's rationale. That's what it's went on the record saying, is that it's a handheld franchise, and that's where people want to play it. I think it's completely insane.
No, I think it was handheld at the time it first came out because the online wasn't ready for it. You couldn't do that stuff online, and Nintendo had no interest in online, so that's what it became a handheld, because you could just bring the game to talk to someone else's game directly on the playground or wherever. But I think the rise of the internet and Nintendo's finally embracing the internet as on their platforms makes Pokemon wherever you want to put it.
I also think with the NX, if it truly is a handheld console hybrid, I think the chain may break.
Yeah. Well, I think
because a lot of people
Pokemon Go might make it a mobile series as well.
Yeah, because look, Pokemon, it does move hardware. Like a lot of people will buy the latest Nintendo handheld for Pokemon. Well, if the new handheld is a new console, suddenly, I think people would probably freak out, though, if Nintendo made like a really great Pokemon. I mean, I hate to say it, but some fans would freak out. They like that 2D art style and that, I don't know, I don't understand it. Like, I would love to play like a really awesome, big budget, AAA Zelda-level Pokemon game. I would play the living crap out of that game.
There's people that hate the 3D Fire Emblems, too, for that same reason. And I think they do lose a little bit of personality, but there's a lot more personality in the 2D animation on Fire Emblem than there is in Pokemon. I think Pokemon would only benefit from a big 3D version.
Okay, here's one from My XEQ. Mixik? I don't know how to say that.
Mixik?
With the theme of favorite things, what were your favorite controllers or favorite peripherals?
Favorite controllers? Saturn.
Saturn?
Well, the Saturn controller, the Japanese Saturn controller is, to this day, the best fighting game controller, if you're not going to use a stick.
Yeah.
Best D-pad, best buttons. I love the Japanese Saturn controller.
I would say the later version of the Xbox 360 controller, when they finally figured out the D-pad, when it had, the one that has the D-pad,
spinny
you
D-pad?
spin the
Yeah.
D-pad and it pops up.
That's a good one.
I love that controller. I think it works across all genres. Very versatile, very comfortable. That's probably my favorite. Most ergonomic, I would say, is the GameCube controller. That's about the only thing I got right. But as far as just having a controller sit in your hands and have it feel like it's a part of your hand, the GameCube controller, it's just everything about it. Even the triggers, how it had like the slots for your fingers to like fit in, like just for comfort, I love that controller. But as far as functionality, versatility, Xbox 360 for me.
And I would also give an honorable mention to the Xbox One Elite controller, which is insanely priced.
I haven't even used one yet.
$150. I used one at E3 last year, and it's nice.
I mean, look,
I don't know if it's worth $150, but it's beautiful piece of work.
I like the DualShock 4 a lot as well, by the way. I think that is a great control. Like, you've had problems with quality on yours.
Breaks on you, but
I haven't.
When
mine
it
have
works,
held up
it's
great.
great.
But I love it. Like and I'm really disappointed with the Xbox One controller. Like the D-pad on my controller is a piece of junk. Like I cannot fathom for the life of me.
I don't know how they went from the spinny D-pad to what we got on the Xbox
It's a piece of junk. It's not even a D-pad. It's just 4 buttons. Like, ugh.
And
Seriously, man, it's so bad.
DualShock 4. Look, I hated the DualShocks until this one.
Yep.
All they needed to
I didn't hate them, but
I did.
I preferred to play with anything else. But.
Right. But all they needed to do is what they did this gen is they made the sticks a little concave so my thumbs don't slip off the stupid mushroom like tips anymore. And they originally got it right because they had concave analog sticks on the original dual analog before the DualShock on the PlayStation 1. And then when the DualShock came out, they switched it to the mushroom tips. And I hated the mushroom tips. So.
Yeah. Someone said the Dreamcast controller. I honestly think the Dreamcast controller was awful.
I liked it at the time. I find it hard to use now.
Because here's the thing, like you can't wrap your hands all the way around it. Your fingertips will always butt up against the underside of the controller. The prongs for the controllers aren't long enough to wrap your fingers around it.
I don't really have a problem with
that.
that.
Because that center part where the VMU goes, it's like your fingers hit it.
My problem with the Dreamcast controller is I always thought the cord coming out of the bottom of it was awkward.
Yeah.
It was always hard to
Well,
find.
it had that like thing where you could like clip it in.
Yeah, but it didn't
so
work.
Bizarre.
And the analog stick is like, it's hard, it's mushroom shaped, and it's very easy to slip off of it. It's not very precise in that regard. So.
I
thought the Saturn analog
new
stick was better.
Dreamcast controllers. I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. Here's one that someone reposted from Sega because they say it's a good question. So this one's from Sega. If NX releases this year, is it going to get completely buried under the hype for VR? Would launching next year be better, or would it just be giving VR more traction? I actually mentioned this earlier, that I think Nintendo should launch NX next year. I do think that PlayStation VR is going to take a huge chunk of money out of the market. I think if it launches this year, Nintendo's best hopes are to sell to the same 10 to 12 million people who bought the Wii U. Mm-hmm. What's your take?
I think it's probably wiser if they don't try to compete with the PlayStation VR, because I think PSVR is going to have all the mind share and, more importantly, all the mainstream media coverage.
Yeah.
That
Unless
said,
NX is something mind-blowing.
Yeah, but it's like
not a console handheld hybrid, like something that like projects holograms or something like.
Right, I doubt it.
Right,
but yeah, it would have to be like VR. It would have to be something we've seen in movies and television our whole lives, and it's
something
not
that blows you
real.
away. Yeah,
that it would have to be the video game system equivalent of a Back to the Future hoverboard.
I mean, look, Nintendo did do 3D with no glasses.
True, but
they are wizards on some levels.
Look, I still think it's going to come out this year.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the wise choice, but at the same time, it's like, if it came out this year, it would launch with a new Zelda game. If you can't get people's attention with a new Zelda game, you're in trouble to begin with.
Yep.
One way or the other, the new Zelda is supposed to be out this fall, and is that going to get buried by VR? Maybe. If it only comes out on the Wii U, who's going to care? Other than people who already have Wii U's.
Yeah. Let's see. Do we have anything else? We'll answer 2 more.
Yeah, Wii U Pro controller is a good controller.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Worst controller.
Worst controller. Something Mad Catz made. years and years ago that I could break in half with like my bare hands. Worst control. The original NES controller kind of blows.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a rectangle. There's no ergonomics.
It was
to
like
it,
the
right?
first controller, though.
Yeah.
It's hard to hate on it.
Or the Atari 2600, where like if you pulled on it too hard, the stick, like the
That
rubber
was
around
the
the stick
worst
would rip
one,
off.
because the sticks just broke constantly, and like the quality was really low. I mean,
Jaguar had a terrible
yeah,
controller.
I mean, there's been tons of
A lot
terrible
of bad
controllers. Yeah, I mean, most of them in the past weren't good. Now they got to a place where everyone just kind of copies each other.
Or back in the day, trying to play Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo with the 3DO controller. That was not fun.
All right, here's one from Avatar Continuum. Should game developers be obligated to release DLC for a game on a platform if the initial game was released on said platform? Mortal Kombat X was released on several platforms. However, the latest DLC is not available for the PC version. If they promised the DLC on that platform, yes.
But if they didn't...
If they didn't, they're kind of off
and
the
they
hook.
didn't.
And they didn't, yeah.
But also, it's kind of like assumed that you're going to support all the platforms you release something on.
I mean, the old saying is buyer beware.
Typically,
do your research before you make a purchase. But
Yeah,
I mean, it sucks.
that's-
Look, if you're saying
Yeah.
you bought the PC version, you're pissed off, you're not getting DLC. I hear you. Like that sucks. And it's hard to expect the average consumer to like do hours of research before they purchase.
Well, there's no
a
way you
video
could know
game.
that. There's
right.
no way, they hadn't even announced the DLC that we're talking about here when the game came out.
Yeah.
So there's no way to know.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that should they be forced or obligated? No, but like if you don't want to piss your customers off, you probably should maintain parity.
Yeah.
There was another thing that happened with it. Something they're going to keep updating the console versions, but the PC
Probably
version.
Batman.
No, it wasn't bad. It was something like yesterday or the day before I read, and it was like they're like, we're still open to PC, but we're evaluating things. I can't remember what game it was. It was like another game that like they're gonna basically stop updating it, and they're gonna keep updating the console versions.
I didn't see that story.
I can't remember which game it was. It was not a minor game though, if I remember right.
A lot of people talking smack about the Duke, the original Xbox controller.
I remember when we first got the original Xbox, the review unit for like on all the launch games. We opened it up and we played some stuff, and I stayed really late with Miguel Concepcion at Tech TV, and I played Project Gotham Racing for like 5 hours.
Yeah.
And when that game obviously you're just holding the analog trigger, right? When I stopped playing, and we went to go get dinner. I let go of the controller, and like my index finger felt like when you hit your finger with a hammer.
Yeah.
And like it feels like your finger's like expanding upward.
Yeah.
It felt like I've been putting pressure on it this way so long that it was like when you like try to raise you like someone holds your arms down and then you stop and like your arms automatically go up.
Yeah.
It felt like that on the top. Like, it felt like my fingernail was trying to get off my finger because I'd been holding that giant
The Duke was so bad.
giant stiff trigger down for so
Well, it
long.
also like the top of it was like convexed, so it had like a
all kind of a roll to it.
And that huge logo on the top that took up like half
and the black and white buttons were like up and out.
Oh, I forgot
here
about
for no
the black
good reason.
and white buttons.
And then they made the smaller one, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to put them in a different inconvenient place down here and in the front." And it's just they can never figure out. It's like, and everyone's like, "Why can't you just put 6 buttons on the face of the thing?" Like they never wanted to do it. I don't know what the deal was with that.
All right, I think we're done. I think we've got all our questions in for the week. They're talking about Father Shane now at this point. So
Father Shane. That was a pretty good one.
Yep. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this week's GameFace. As always, thanks to everybody who stayed up late in Europe, or even if you're just watching on the East Coast, it is getting up near around midnight or so. We really appreciate it, especially on a work night. Let's see. Any announcements? Platinum Journey. A new episode should be coming soon. Going back and forth with Adam right now on that. He's getting very close, so that should be coming very soon. Any update on the quiz show? I'm working on the show, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, at first I was like, let's just throw it together, and like, I'll come in on a Saturday and we'll make it work. Well, I started thinking about it. It's like, you just can't do that with a quiz show. Like, there needs to be like a structure and like a way to make it competitive and a way for somebody to be able to come back if they're getting their butt kicked. So I'm kind of working on the whole theory and the strategy for the quiz show, but I think I'm pretty close at this point. I already have plenty of quiz questions written, I can tell you that. So that is still in the works. Once I finally have sort of the logic of the game done and the logistics, and then we have the graphics finished, we will do an episode. So yeah, I think maybe I jumped the gun on that one a little bit. I was like, oh, it's easy. We'll just all get together and we'll just ask each other questions. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. So it's coming. We're going to do it. I don't know. It may be one episode and done, but if it doesn't work. But we're going to definitely try it and do at least a pilot for it and see what you guys think of it. So I think that's it. GameFace 41 is up and out.